Here we are, we're talking about Zelda Tears of the Kingdom with Mitch,
Yeah.
Bran, Scatman,
Oh,
Moogle, and I'm Specs. We haven't really, we talked about a way to structure this, but probably what we're going to do is talk about the tutorial and then just branch out from there with random stream of consciousness. I think it's a good idea to lead with the tutorial because it allows us to introduce the new mechanics, and from there we can just kind of talk about our general thoughts of what we liked, what we didn't like, and why this is the worst Zelda sequel that's ever existed.
I thought we were going to lead with what everybody's done in the game.
Oh yeah, good idea.
Hello, I'm Animitch, and I have a problem. I have not beaten the game. I have just completed the 4 main dungeons.
4.
I have done 121 shrines. I have done 114 deep seeds, and I have collected 295 Korok seeds.
Damn, that's a lot of Korok seeds. Bran.
Hi, I'm the resident crazy person trying to do everything in this game. I've beaten the game and done all the dungeons. I have done all the shrines. I have done all of the light routes. I have done most of the mini bosses. Did all of the... I'm just missing the Hinox and the Taluses. I've done all the bubble gems, and I have 800 Korok seeds.
Shit.
he's got a fucking problem.
He's got the problem. Catsman.
It says to the fact that I like this game so much that I have actually done all the shrines and all the bubble gems, and I'm working on all the side quests now. I'm not going to do all the fucking Korok seeds. I'm not an asshole or anything, but yeah, it's a good game.
Moogle.
I have done like 120 shrines. I think I did like 50 to 60 light routes. I've done all of the core like story content of the game, all of the dungeons, like the end game, done all of that. And very little in the sky. I think that probably about covers. I did a lot of side quests though. Did a shit ton of side quests.
I've just finished the game. I've done all of the main dungeons. I've done about 100 shrines and about 90 of the light route things. I've got about 150 Koroks, I think. And side quest wise, I've done all the main quest things, like and I've probably done quite a few side quests, but there's so many in this game. Bubble gems, I've got like 20 or 30. I don't know.
Those are loser numbers, Specs.
Yeah, well, yeah.
I think I've done the bubble gems. I just haven't found the guy to hand them all in yet.
I'll start talking about the start of this game, because before this game came out, I was like, I'm skeptical. I don't know if the Sky Islands are going to be that interesting. I don't know if they're going to add that much that's new. I don't know if this is going to be this, if Breath of the Wild was like a flash in the pan, basically. And I opened up this game and I played 3 hours of it. And by the end of those 3 hours, I was still on the tutorial island and I was bored.
Yep.
Agree. Hard agree. I think the worst thing about the start of this game is you start off in like a fucking cutscene and then you walk for like 5 minutes and then there's another cutscene. Whereas Breath of the Wild was like you wake up and it's go. You just go, you're playing. Whereas this one you had like so much just talking before anything happened. And what I really liked about Breath of the Wild was it was just like, okay, you can just play the game, do what you like. Tears of the Kingdom is like, let's have a load of backstory bullshit that you need to go through before you're even like given control of your character.
I didn't mind the I guess what it was effectively like the cold open. I really liked like the atmosphere. It was really like dark and gloomy, and it was only 5 minutes. It didn't bother me that much. I was like barely engrossed, and then like after like when you like wake up and like you jump out and like the title starts, like I thought that was like a really like cool moment.
So the cool thing about the opening sequence is actually going back to the same place later in the game and being like, oh shit, I was here.
Yes.
And I think it's good in that it doesn't introduce the depth straight away. It deliberately keeps that from you so that that can be a surprise for later on, which is fun. I understand with this game that there is more a little bit more story housekeeping to do, and there's also the opening area is way more linear because they have things that they have to introduce you to in a very certain order, and they have to make sure that you understand the thing properly before you leave. Otherwise you're going to be screwed for like the final game, and the mechanics are more complicated. So I do kind of get that they have to do that, but they also front load it with like so many explanations of things that should have been pushed back later. Like you go down a mine and you like mine some zoanite, and then a construct tells you about like crystalline charges and fucking like zoanite and the other zoanite resource that you get from killing constructs, and it's like, oh my god, I'm not going to retain this. This information is going to be useful for another 6 hours. Why do they tell you about that then? It's pointless. You're not going to visit the depths for ages.
Right. I agree.
I did the tutorial, and I think I forgot almost all of it. You know that thing that I do a lot where the really simple thing I just can't get in my brain? I forgot that Ascend was a thing for vast quantities of the game.
Same.
I constantly forgot that Ascend existed.
Takes a little while.
And it just didn't enter my puzzle-solving headspace for a long, long time.
That's interesting. I used it all the time, and anytime I saw like a cave in a hill, I would go into it and then ascend up to get up to the top.
The problem with that is that you have the ability to climb, and that's your go-to to getting verticality. So that's probably why you keep forgetting you have Ascend.
Yes, also, there's that, and there's also the fact that the game kind of expects you to build things, which I guess we'll get onto in a bit, but I also, like, there are now 3 ways to move. Like, you can physically move the body, you can climb, you can dive, whatever. You can, like, glide when you get that. You can climb, which is a thing, I guess. You can ascend, and then you can build something, a contraption of some kind that makes you move. Like, you've got all of these things.
As a climb hater, I loved it because all the boring time I spent climbing in Breath of the Wild is now done. I climbed that mountain once legitimately. There's no reason to make players do it again.
I agree.
I think Tears of the Kingdom understands that, and it gives you much better tools to traverse the environment because it knows that there's other things it could be making you do instead.
Like, the world is so much bigger now, and I think they knew that they couldn't just like make you like run across the world all over again, and so they've made traversal like substantially faster.
Yeah.
Faster and more varied as well.
Yeah. Just generally more fun, yeah.
Coming back to the idea that the tutorial is more linear, because it has to be, and that's completely understandable. It is so linear. Like, I tried to sequence break it because I was like, hey, if I just staple a shit ton of logs together, I can get up onto that floating island, and then I can get over there. Like, it really doesn't work. So I almost got to the Ascend power-up before I got the building power-ups, and that was not a good idea at all. If I had managed to do it, it would have been so confusing because I just like missed one of the main 4 like powers that you get. But like you said, that makes it really boring. Whereas in Breath of the Wild, you could be like, okay, I want to go over there. I can see something in the distance I want to explore, and it doesn't really matter what order you got the powers in or anything. This has to be linear so you don't miss anything. But the game also kind of treats you like a complete idiot. So you have to talk to the constructs. You can't like use the powers without having talked to them, and they have to explain everything in detail, and almost like you have to tick the box to say, yes, I have passed this test that I need to do to move on. And it's just kind of like, just like, give me the power and let me go. I don't care. I can come back and talk to you later.
They are more complicated, and given that someone here started the game and got like 6 hours in without the paraglider, and someone else got 6 hours in without realizing he could ascend.
It's less that I didn't realize I could do it, and more that every time I used it, it would then blank from my brain until the next time I spent like 10 minutes looking at a problem and then going, oh, I can ascend. Right, okay, I get it. It didn't enter my mental headspace in a meaningful way for about 6 hours.
Another thing about Breath of the Wild's Great Plateau stuff that's so much better is that you can see the whole world.
Yeah.
Like, you're in the middle of it, you're like raised up a little bit. So it's so tantalizing, and like, if you'd come from Skyward Sword, the Great Plateau on its own is already an enormous area, many times larger than any area in Skyward Sword. So just the knowledge that like you can literally go to any place on the horizon is absolutely sick. Whereas in this game, for some reason, when you're on that initial Sky Island, they have like the whole they have all the clouds below, so you can't see the overworld. It's like, why did you do that? That's so much less interesting.
I think it gives you the moment that when you dive down for the first time, you can then see the entire world.
Yeah,
But it's
it's for
like,
the
oh
reveal.
great, the entire world that I've already seen for a different game. Like,
Yeah, you
it's
didn't need to hide
yeah,
it.
we've already been
Yeah.
there.
If anything, it's worse because like when you get up close to places in the overworld, you see how much they've changed, but it looks the same from the fucking sky. Maybe that's why they did it.
Maybe, yeah. And then extrapolating onward from like the tutorialization of this game to tutorialization to death. All of the shrines around the first area you land in once you get out of the tutorial island are tutorial shrines that teach you stuff like, here's how to throw your weapon, here's how to use a bow, here's how to sneak, things like that, which I don't think Breath of the Wild ever tutorialized. I think, like, people said to you, oh, by the way, you can crouch or whatever, but it was stuff that you just learnt through NPC dialogue that or figured out yourself. Whereas in this game, they beat you over the head with it. They're like, you're going to learn how to get a headshot now. And that's really annoying when you find one of those shrines again, when you've played 100 hours of the game already, and you're like, oh, not one of these.
Yeah.
This is the Nintendo problem, which is they make games for anybody.
But Breath of the Wild wasn't like that, though. Breath of the Wild
Breath
like
of the
really
Wild didn't do
respected
it,
the
yeah.
player way more.
No, but I think that that's probably stuff that they received in feedback. All of the stuff to do with the tutorial island and the tutorial stuff, I think, is feedback from Breath of the Wild. They include like a big segment to start with because there were a lot of criticisms with Breath of the Wild about its story and the way that it told its story. Like, it wasn't a cohesive, like, this thing, then this thing, then this thing, then this thing. And that's what they're trying to do with this. Like, they have that open, effectively, to give you a reason to think about going and doing stuff.
We could talk about that later, but the story in this game is so much worse, and
Yeah,
that is
agree.
one of the
Yeah.
many issues with it. To just get back to the powers briefly, like, this game is more complicated. I don't mind them necessarily tutorializing it. One, the game has a problem with slow text, slow cutscenes, and slow transitions, like fades to black and things. And I would not care about finding one of those tutorial shrines if the tutorial shrine did not fucking beat you over the head with really slow text explaining what to do that you can't skip.
Yeah.
If I could just go over and run and hit the enemy and leave, it would be fine, but it doesn't let you do that. Do you want to talk about the Ultra Hand power-up?
Yeah, I think we should talk about Ultra Hand.
Because it's basically the foundation of the whole game.
Ultra Hand and Fuse are like the basics of the fucking game.
I don't even think Fuse is like necessary.
I
I mean,
do.
we
No,
can
it's
go over
definitely
the finer
necessary.
points of that, but
It's fine, but this is the Ultra Hand game. Moogle, you're a hater. What do you think?
I'm not so much a hater as I just don't enjoy building things as a concept of a game. Like, I will freely confess I am not a creatively minded person. If you give me an option to, like, if you give me options to complete something, I will pick the most efficient way of doing it every single time, without fail.
Yes.
The thing with that is that you are often constrained to what you can build in what is in your immediate vicinity. You have the orbs that kind of alleviate that, but it's random. It's not random, but certain gachapon machines can only release a certain amount of things.
Yes.
And it costs a currency to use those things. But also, a simple motorcycle is not only efficient in the objects that you can do, because you get ability later that allows you to basically make it out of nothing if you spend some zonite.
Yes.
So building a simple vehicle that's only a couple things doesn't detract from your zonite that much. And also, the fewer things that are activated means that your batteries last longer. So building a big aircraft carrier or something is going to drain your batteries, it's going to drain your zonite unless you've gone around and collected a whole bunch of items to make sure that you can build it for free. And then another thing that pisses me off is that a lot of the flying vehicles, they degrade after such a distance.
yeah, that sucks.
Yeah, the wing especially.
Anything with a wing, yeah.
And the balloons as well.
It's particularly stupid as well because although those degrade, the wing, which is obviously designed for flying, you can make yourself a little flying tricycle or bicycle, which will never disappear.
Yep.
And it doesn't really cost that much in the way of battery
Cost 9 zonite.
and no zonite as well. So you can get pretty far and beat most of the challenges just by making an air bike.
This is the problem that I have, similar to what like Moogle was saying, is that like the first like half of my adventure, I had a lot of fun experimenting and like building a bunch of like random shit based on what I had. But then once I discovered the hover bike, I never made anything else ever again.
Yeah.
And the hover bike is just all I ever make because it solves every problem that I could ever possibly need it for.
So I had a miserable first 10 hours of this game because I didn't find like the auto build for a while.
Me too.
Like, which I guess we'll get onto in a minute. This is absolutely the ultra hand and building things game. Like I minimized like the amount of time I spend engaging with it completely. I would take any other option than building something because I don't think I guess the UX is probably the way of putting it for it is very good. Like the UI, I guess it makes sense, but like there are just so many button presses required. And it feels so finicky to get it exactly right if you want to get it exactly right.
Yeah,
I just didn't want to engage with it. Like I had no fun with it whatsoever. So for me, the fuse was much more important and impactful to me in the game because it's the fuse ability that lets you bypass one of like I didn't hate it, but like there are some people that really hate Breath of the Wild's like durability mechanics and the way that you like have to waste weapons, and you don't have to anymore. Like you can just keep making good weapons constantly.
The building, when it was first revealed in the trailers, people were like, oh, it's like Banjo-Kazooie nuts and bolts. That's an insult to Banjo-Kazooie nuts and bolts. It is so finicky to get something lined up just right because shit gets stuck on this geometry all the fucking time when you're trying to drive around.
Yes.
I know the hover bike alleviates all that, but I like a fucking motorcycle, bro.
Yeah.
Understandable.
Yeah, he does. I want to come in with my hot take right now and say that people compared this to Banjo-Kazooie Nuts and Bolts, which is absolutely stupid because Banjo-Kazooie Nuts and Bolts threw out a lot of the gameplay of previous installments in the series and replaced it with some bullshit vehicle thing, whereas this game doesn't. I think this game really integrates the vehicles really well into all the traverse and all the puzzle solving. I think maybe that the capital C contraptions are at their best in the contraption shrines.
Yeah.
Or in areas where the game will give you a specific set of pieces lying around and say, solve the puzzle using the pieces that we've given you.
Yeah.
I think on the overworld, it has problems with like balance. It has problems with some stuff not being useful enough, some stuff being too useful, some stuff using too much battery, some stuff seemingly going on forever. Cars like aren't as useful as they could be because once you can get flying machines, there's no reason to like build a car ever again, really. That said, I had a tremendous amount of fun solving all of the building puzzles, and I think I had a lot of fun just experimenting and making stuff and picking up all of the like blueprints and being like, oh, I can make this. And even towards the end of the game, I made a lot of hover bikes, but I also made quite a lot of boats.
I do like making boats. Yeah.
And like automated allies, mining machines. I made quite a few like spring contraptions to fling myself up really high sometimes. Like I'd say there's honestly still quite a good variety of like building stuff in the game.
I think the variety of building is determined entirely by your brain cell count because when you were listing off all those things, I was like, oh shit, I probably could have used like a thing that flung me up and such and such. I just build motorcycles.
So I'm in a similar boat, but I basically have 3 things in my auto build favorites list. One of them is a hover bike. One of them is a hover bike with a Korok attached to it in such a way that it doesn't imbalance it, so I can build it right next to it and it just auto builds it in the right place. That's the second one. The last one is what I call the Worm's airstrike ability, which is like it's 5 or 6 explosive barrels strapped to each other, and I just auto build it and drop it like from auto build straight on top of enemies.
Very
you
nice,
claim
very
that
nice.
you're not creative.
That's it. That's the only 3 things I have in my auto build because it solves every single problem in the game. If I have enemies that I want flung from a distance so that I can deal with them one-on-one, I airstrike them. If I want to move anywhere, I just build a hover bike. If I actually want to engage with those little shit fuck Koroks who I have to reach their friends, I just fucking build the bike with the Korok automatically attached to it.
The hover bike does break the game, and it's pretty clear that Nintendo didn't think so, because the reason they make the glider break after a while is because they don't want to give you a vehicle that can just fly anywhere right at the start of the game.
Yeah.
Sure, but at the same time, it's a single-player game. Where's the competitiveness? If I want to go somewhere, I can. It's just the ease. But like,
I agree.
With the glider, especially in the depths, it's like you fly to a location, you stop, and then it's a pain in the ass to get the glider to take off again.
You can put a cart on the bottom of it so it can take off from anywhere.
Yeah, that's what I always do.
I know, but you still need like a flat surface to go.
Or a rocket. You can put a rocket on it so that it launches off.
What I do is I pick it up, drop it, stand on it, reverse time it, and then turn it on as I hover.
Yeah, my roommate does that a lot as well.
That's the way to do it. But the reason I think that the glider specifically does it is because, in theory, you can go high with the gliding wing, and then you can turn it off by like not standing on the steering stick or anything.
Yeah, and you can still
the fans will turn off. The battery recharges. If you want to go up with a hover bike, you have to keep using the battery, which then dips into the relationship between batteries and everything else. Yeah, absolutely.
One of the coolest things you can do is you can strap a little cage to the bottom of it and put an electric choo-choo in the cage. If you trap an electric choo-choo in the cage, and then the electric choo-choo will power any vehicle that you've got.
Wait, really?
Yeah. There's loads of weird conservation of electricity things you can do. Like, there's these weird generators that you can find in some of the shrines as well. And if you strap them to a vehicle correctly, then you can kind of create infinite energy sources of them. Coming on to that, like thinking about building shrines, there's a lot of the shrines that have unique materials in them that you don't see anywhere else in the game, and it's hard to get them out of the shrines, but you can. So there's a Goron at Tarrytown that will separate items. So if you strap one of the unique shrine items to your shield and then separate it in Tarrytown, you can get the weird propellers that are there. You can get like the floating devices that aren't found in the overworld anywhere. There's like various bits and bobs that you can just take out into the overworld and use to make weird contraptions. You're not really supposed to take out, and you're not supposed to be able to auto build them because they're supposed to be confined to the shrines where you can't auto build.
Yes, and they're all game breaking when you use them.
Kind of
like they do something that you're not supposed to be able to do, whether it's conservation of electricity or anything else. Like you just perpetual motion machine it.
Yeah,
it's very, very easy.
thinking about whether I like the building or not, the shrines, it might just be because it's so far away from Breath of the Wild. It's been like 7 years or whatever that I can't really remember what the shrines were like in that game. But I don't think I like the fact that all of the solutions to the shrine are build the thing that you obviously have to build here because we've given you the parts to build the thing. Like, I don't think there's enough freedom of expression in completing the task. It's like, I understand that the shrines are kind of supposed to teach you, like there's one where you learn that you can make a paddle boat if you strap paddles to a wheel and like sort of get yourself to pull yourself across a current, and that's obviously the solution. You can cheese it a couple of other ways, but like it's supposed to be teaching you, here's how you build this thing. But actually, practically out in the wild, I'm not going to build that thing. I'm just going to strap a fan to the back of a log and then use that instead.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, you would do that in the wild, but it's fun to see all of the different ways that the like physics interacts, and the shrines do a really good job of like finding every possible weird like use and weird like combination of different things you can make.
Yeah.
I played through Breath of the Wild at end of 2022 again in preparation for this game. Oof. My second playthrough of Breath of the Wild, I also didn't fucking finish all of the shrines. The shrines in this game are so much better.
I would
agree. They are so much
agree.
better. It is unreal how much more fun they are. Like, the building shrines are great. You've got the shrines that do the eventide thing of taking away all your equipment.
Yeah, those are
all good.
Those are so good, yeah.
Like, and they, again, most of them, like, really focus on like coming up with some unconventional way to like solve a problem with the equipment they've given you. Normally they either give you parts to build a contraption to kill enemies, or they expect you to like use the environment to kill enemies in some fun way. It's great. There's some conventional shrines in there as well that work more like Breath of the Wild shrines, which I thought were pretty decent. There might be another subgenre of shrine that I'm forgetting.
There's the tutorial ones, and then there's Rauru's Blessing, which are much nicer.
There's a lot lot of them in this game, I feel like.
They feel more rewarding than the ones did in Breath of the Wild, I think, because they're always at the end of having done something else.
Yeah.
Like, you do an overworld puzzle and then you find it. Whereas a lot of them in Breath of the Wild, I was like, oh,
Great.
I thought this was going to be a fun shrine, but no, it's not.
There's a lot of them in this game that are like that.
You can cheese them accidentally, but they all are supposed to have a puzzle leading up to them.
I accidentally cheesed like several of them in a row, I think, to the point where I was like, well, what the fuck is going on here? And again, the problem was the hover bike. The hover bike is the cause of and solution to most of my issues with this game, because
Maybe that's what
once you
happened to
can
me.
build it, everything becomes trivial in the overworld. And in the depths as well, to be honest with you. Like, everything becomes trivial at that point.
There's also a lot of them that are in like pretty trivial caves.
Yeah.
Where like I go into a cave and I find a shrine, and I'm like, it's not a very deep cave. It takes me maybe like, I don't know, like 30 seconds to a minute. Maybe it's underestimate, but it's not a deep cave. And I go into the shrine and it's just a blessing. I'm like, this. I feel like there should be a puzzle in here.
It probably was. It was probably a side quest that you didn't pick up from someone to find a cave
I
based
just
on
walked
some
into
like
the cave,
obscure
I guess.
puzzle clue.
Yeah.
Like there's one of those in like the northwest, which is like, yeah, find the cave where the bird's beak touches this thing, and like you have to wait until sunrise
Yeah, and then see
Oh,
where
yeah,
the
I
shadow
remember
Oh,
goes.
yeah.
and then see where the shadow goes. But like you can just go into that cave by complete accident.
True.
It's quite hard to get into that one because you can't see it easily unless you know where it is. But you could, in theory, just walk in it and go, oh,
In my opinion, I like that you can cheese them accidentally. Like,
yeah, it's nice.
I don't like that there are shrines in caves because you get the shrine detector and it tells you, oh, there's a shrine below you, and I'm on top of a fucking mountain, and I'm like, great, I have to now do concentric circles going down this mountain until I can find the entrance of the cave. Because some of these cave entries are miles away from where these shrines are and at different elevations.
you're not supposed to use the shrine radar to find shrines in caves. There's two things you can do.
Yes.
Either you can leave an apple at a cherry blossom tree,
Yes.
which will highlight all the caves in the area.
Yeah, that's cool.
Or you can look for blue peas.
Yes.
The game will spawn blue peas near the entrances to caves, and then it's really good. If you like jump down there and try to kill it, it will run away towards the cave entrance. It's a lovely bit of signposting.
Yes, it's good.
Yeah, that's good.
Yes, I know these things, but a cherry blossom tree is not always within view, and instead of looking for a cave entrance, I'm looking for a tiny animal instead. It's still the same thing, and they're not that far away from the entrance.
I kind of wish that they hadn't even put the shrine radar in, to be honest, because, yeah, well, like you say, when you're trying to find things in caves, it's just frustrating.
No, you need the shrine radar.
I feel like I didn't really need the shrine radar,
I have never used it.
especially because of the depths.
Yes.
Again, that's a really good feature because light routes are way easier to find, and
Exactly.
I used the
yeah.
depths to triangulate the locations of the last like 10 or 20 shrines I was missing.
Yeah, I did all of the light routes
Yeah.
first, so that I could then find the remainder of the shrines.
Because it's so much more fun than just looking it up or using the shrine radar, because it feels like you're like solving it yourself.
Yeah, I found that out without looking online.
For people who don't realize this, all of the shrines are above or very close to the light routes in the depths. Like, so if you just go above a light route that you found, there's a useful feature that you can, if you look at the map of the depths while you're on the surface, your mini map will stay as the depths.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
good.
So you can just like walk over to where you know the light route will be.
So fusion then.
It's good for me because I want to do combat, and I want to do combat like most of the time. That's my answer to most problems in the game is combat. Like,
I love what you can do with Fuse. I think Fuse is wonderful. I hate using Fuse.
Yep, completely
Yeah,
agree,
UX
Brian.
issue.
It is awful. Some of the worst like UI I've ever fucking seen. Like, Jesus Christ.
I gotta get the thing out of my inventory. I gotta
Drop
drop
it
it
on
on
the
the
floor.
ground. I gotta change my ability. I gotta use the ability. Oh no, I accidentally used it on a rock that's nearby. And now I gotta go into my inventory. I gotta unfuse it. Oh, if that was something that I wanted, I've gotta destroy that item. And then I gotta fuse it to the other thing.
Nintendo, why isn't there just a button in the inventory that fucking fuses things together?
There should just be a menu for it.
if I'm being generous, it's because they don't want you to do it in combat. They want you to prepare for the combat that you are in.
It's still a pain in the ass.
And just disable it when an enemy's out.
It's so useful in combat, though. You need to do it in combat.
I agree.
Dear Nintendo, if you don't want me to do it in combat, then give me a durability meter so that I know if my weapon is going to break after it hits a fucking Lizalfos 3 times. It is so ridiculous.
That's me being generous.
It's such a Nintendo thing to be like, okay, we understand that people don't like the scarcity of weapons in Breath of the Wild. So they came up with this really elegant solution that both fixes the problem and lets people be like creative with their fusions and create really wacky combinations, and like incentivizes people to like go out and fight all the tough monsters and gives you a really good use for monster parts, and all that stuff is just great. And then they botch onto it the shittest user interface I think I've ever seen in a video game.
Fuse solves a lot of problems, but creates a whole bunch of new ones.
Yeah.
It fixes the fact that losing weapons sucked in Breath of the Wild, but now you can just make really useful weapons out of just sticks and rocks.
Yep.
Or just items and tools. But yeah, it still fell into the same problem with me, is that I make these really powerful weapons that I don't... Or just find... The durability is still a problem with me. I'd make these really powerful weapons that break too quickly, or I find these unique weapons that I don't want to lose in the depths.
You never want to use, yeah.
I think you're supposed to put them on weapon stands. But yeah, weapons also breaking too quickly. It's kind of like...
I think they break quicker than in Breath of the Wild. They feel like they break more quickly.
They do.
It's like a plot point as well.
Yeah, the pristine weapons that you find in the depths are a lot more durable and they do more damage. So you are supposed... There's a gameplay loop, which I guess we'll discuss, which is you spend some time above ground, you spend some time underneath, and then you go to the sky, and then you go back to above ground again.
Yeah.
And then you repeat that process, like, as a gameplay loop. I don't necessarily agree with it, but I think that's what they intended.
There are quite a lot of useful resources that can only be found in certain areas, and those areas are useful then in other areas. Like,
yes,
the sky has lots of Sundelions, which are really useful in the depths. The depth has lots of Zoanite, which is really useful for traversal. You know, like Breath of the Wild is like basically just a series of like resources that are scarce that you need to collect, and all of these different systems like feed into one another and force you to keep exploring and keep killing enemies. And adding these new areas, they were very smart to make sure that all of those new areas had lots of goodies that you wanted to find and use all the time.
Also, interestingly, fairies are very rarely found anywhere other than in the sky nowadays.
Also, the device dispensers are found in the sky mostly.
The fuse, I think... It half solves the problem of durability, but not really. Like Mitch was saying, by the end of the game, I had like 4 80+ weapons in my inventory, which then I didn't use because, nicely, for the final boss of this game, the Master Sword doesn't lose durability. So I never had an occasion to use my big fuck-off weapons because the Master Sword was just as powerful in the final fight and didn't break.
You evil within it, where you don't fire the Magnum until the last boss, but then the last boss is a...
Yeah, I kept my Magnum until the final boss. So I've never used like these gloom sort of halberds that I've got from fighting the Phantom Ganon, because they're just sat there for an occasion where I might fight something big enough to use them, and there never has been any.
The fact that I could always make good weapons meant that I just didn't hoard weapons and used whatever I had.
I know I shouldn't be like that, but like I spend a good amount of my resources killing one of the sand whales.
Moldugas, yeah.
So I kill one of them, I attach its jaw to the special scimitar that you get by giving them like 5 diamonds or whatever. I have a 90+ sword, and I'm like, hell fucking yeah. I go out to 3 camps and it's broken.
This is the problem.
Because, like, the power levels of the enemies, this is some Oblivion tier shit where they scale with you.
They do,
it's fucking obnoxious. I'm running around.
In this one too,
I'm running around fucking
do.
Hyrule Field near these starting locations. There's white bokoblins and white moblins everywhere, and I'm like, holy shit, I don't want to fight these.
The level fluctuation is ridiculous in this game. Like, I am scared to go into a camp full of silver enemies. I am not scared to fight Phantom Ganon because I can kill him.
There's only one of him.
Right.
I can soak his damage. Like, he hits me, I'm like, yeah, whatever. Like, that does half a heart of damage. A silver bokoblin comes up to me, I'm like, damn, he's pushing my asshole inside out.
It hits you and does like half your health.
A lot of the times I would just find a lake and push them
Yes.
in. It's much easier.
Yeah, that's
They've got
fun.
so much fucking health.
That's what the airstrike's for, because the worm's airstrike just launches fucking everything in a fucking 30-foot range into the air, so I just airstrike them into water.
What's quite fun to do is if you stick a spring on your shield with
Yes.
fuse and they hit you, they just go fucking flying.
Boing. There's a lot of bullshit that you can do. Like, you can put a topaz on a shield, and if they hit your shield, they get electric, and they drop all their shit, you can pick it up.
The shield fusions are underrated.
They're very
You
good.
can
Yeah, they are.
fusing a like minecart to my shield lets me like rail grind.
No, so you can just rail grind with a regular shield, which I think is bad. I think
Wait,
you
really?
should. Yeah, you can do it with any shield. It should only happen with a minecart, but it doesn't. It can happen with anything.
Oh, that's unfortunate.
Yeah, it's a bit lame.
Fusing a cart to your shield lets you like surf on it really well as well. It's great fun.
But it still degrades too quickly. I feel like making a skateboard.
I didn't have problems with degrading shields from surfing. It depends. Some of the nicest shields in the game are the Hyrule Castle shields, which are decayed, so they fucking break really quickly, so don't use them.
So a secret is that instead of fusing like a cart or like a wheels to it or whatever, you can fuse like a cold item, including frozen meat, and it does exactly the same thing.
Love
And
it.
it makes a much nicer noise as well.
It really does, yeah.
There's a lovely slimy meat noise that ice meat makes.
It really is. It's very mucusy, isn't it?
I love the wet thud, the meat noise. Okay, let's talk about the game's balance for a second, because it is all over the fucking place.
Sure is.
We all agree. Number one is that high-level enemies appear very quickly, and they are so... Not only do they hit you really hard, but they are really fucking spongy. They take a
They sure
long
are.
time to kill.
They have especially the silvers. I was getting the silver enemies before because I took a long time to do my first dungeon, and I was getting like silver enemies all over the place before I
Yeah.
even did a single
Likewise.
dungeon.
Same.
The other thing of that is that not only does it take quite a lot of time and effort to find all of the great fairies, but when you do, leveling up some of the armors is so grindy.
Yeah, so the
Ridiculous.
only level 4 set that I have at the end of the game, I think the only level 3 set I have even, is the first armor you ever run into, the like Hyrulean set with the hood.
Me too.
So
Yeah,
I've got
likewise.
that at 60 health or 60 defense, and
Yep.
that's all I've been using. As soon as you get that to level 4, you take no damage from
Yeah,
anything. So it
it's
completely
bizarre.
breaks the difficulty in the other direction.
I don't understand why they did it like this. If they had just made level 3 not as defensive, but easier to obtain, it would have solved so many of the problems.
Yeah.
I think the problem is also that armor set is just the best armor set in the game.
No.
I don't know. There's quite a lot of other like useful armors in the game.
For
that-
combat, it's the only one that matters.
I would like to be wearing the one that's got attack up, but I haven't found all of it yet.
Yeah. There's the attack up armors, there's jewelry you can wear, there's quite a lot of stuff. I use the stealth armor quite a lot as well, sneaking up on enemies, catching bugs, all that shit.
I use it to catch fairies only.
Yeah, catching fairies.
Yeah.
Like there's a lot of utility to the different armor sets in my opinion, and I actually really like the new armors and the functional like niches that they have. It's just grindy. It's like you look at the requirements for getting your armor to level 3 or 4, and it's like, oh, I need 60 Lionel's worth of Lionel guts. Like, who thinks that's a
Yeah.
good idea? And I like that the game encourages you to like be curious and go out of your way to like catch every bug that you see and like pick up every bit of flora and fauna, but you don't need to do that 30 times. Just make me do it 5 times. To upgrade the stealth armor, you need stealth fin trout, which only appear in one fucking lake in the entire game, and you will never have been in that lake by the time you get to the point where the game asks you.
Yeah.
And it's just like, oh great, guess I'm going to that lake and spending 30 minutes catching fucking fish. That's not interesting game design. Nintendo, what are you doing?
Even when it's something fun that's like kill Henoxes, I've killed maybe like 7 Henoxes, and I do not have 3 Henox guts to upgrade one of the 3 pieces of armor that, like...
You need to kill the highest level Henoxes.
I need 9 Henox guts to get to level 2 in this armor. It's like, fuck off, Nintendo. I'll keep wearing my base armor set that has that much defense. Like, I want to upgrade these armors, but I am not going on a fucking big-ass grind hunt to get all the pieces I need.
And a ton of rupees too, by the way. Like,
yeah, the other thing is the cost. So I looked this up. It's 750 to upgrade one piece of armor to like level 4. 760 actually, which means if you're upgrading like a full set, it's going to cost you over 2,000 rupees. So it's interesting because in Breath of the Wild, you had an upfront cost for the fairies, because the fairies cost in total, I think, about 11,500 rupees to like unlock all 4 fairies, which is the equivalent of fully upgrading about 5 armor sets in this game, I think. But the problem is, I don't know if Breath of the Wild's armors were cheaper to buy up front, but it feels like a lot of the armor that you're getting in this game, you're having to buy, and it's a big expense. The only thing I ever spend money on in this game is armor because it's so expensive to get. I know there's a lot to find now as well, but it's all weird esoteric stuff that you need like star fragments to upgrade, so it's not useful.
Yeah, the star and dragon fragment as well. Oh god. If a piece of armor is like, you are going to need 3 dragon scales per item to upgrade this armor set. It's like, oh, well, those only replenish every 10 minutes.
Yeah.
So you're effectively asking me to either by chance happen upon a dragon 9 times, which takes ages, or to grind the dragon. I don't want to
sit on it.
I don't want to be too negative here because, you know, the combat is fun and expressive, and finding the bosses are fun. It's even though the enemies hit hard, it's never really too punishing. It's kind of fun and breezy, and it's interesting, like having incentives to go and hunt down every kind of monster, but it's just a little bit busted.
I want to talk about combat a little bit because it's bad. It's fine for bosses, whatever, okay, but the flurry rush is the biggest crutch the combat has. If there was no flurry rush, this would be awful.
Yep.
I'm not saying that the game needs to be Devil May Cry 5, but it can at least be Devil May Cry 1. For God's sake, I want a stinger, I want a million stab, I want a launcher. Because every combat encounter, for me, where I can't push shit into water, is I use my weapon, I knock them over once, and then I keep hitting them while they're on the fucking floor as they keep getting knocked over and over again.
Unlock them.
Or I'm wasting arrows headshotting them.
Yeah, it's boring because they're just sponges as well.
When you use like a big weapon, like a great sword, and like you hold down the attack button to just spin, like that shit is such like an auto win on so many enemies.
Or just a spear. Spears just stun lock enemies. If you just jab them in the face, and you don't even need to knock them over, just jab them 3 times, pause, jab them 3 times, pause. It makes them easier to kill. I think what this game does better with combat maybe is that you have more options. Like you can make a little auto turret to fight with you, which I never do, to be honest, but it's fun when you do that.
I love doing that. I have lots of fun with auto turrets.
I try to do that, but it's like I have to get them out, I have to fuse them, and then I have to position them correctly.
Oh, I auto build them.
Yeah, I didn't have auto build when I first did that.
I made a handful of turrets that I liked, and then I put them on my auto build.
You still have to either drop the orbs or have enough zonite to afford auto building them.
The thing about this game's combat is that when the game is trying, it's really fun. Like the designers can put together enemy encounters that are varied, that have like enemies on moving platforms, or enemies from above sniping you, or enemies like launching explosives at you, or Aracudas like picking up a bokoblin and like dropping it on you. It has fun bosses like Lionels that really challenge you and make you like read their attacks and be careful instead of just mashing all the time. But most of the encounters in the game are just a couple of bokoblins next to like a bonfire.
Yeah.
And it's such a fucking wasted opportunity that the tools are there, but instead of making the combat more interesting and varied, the majority of it is just an enemy with too much health.
Yeah, and it's unfortunate because There's more enemy variety in this game compared to Breath of the Wild, but all of that enemy variety is like only in certain places. Like the overworld is like the surface is still all the same enemies. Like sure, there's likes and other stuff.
They've like doubled the number of enemies in the game, but the majority of that, like 90% of the enemies you face, will be the same basic enemies from Breath of the Wild.
Yeah, because all the new stuff are exclusive to certain like parts of the game. Like only in the depths, or only in caves, or only in the sky.
Which I appreciate the new added variety. Yeah, I do appreciate it. Like, I'm not shitting on it.
It's nice, yeah. I just wish there was more stuff like on the surface.
Yeah, I don't mean to dunk on the game's combat. It is really fun. It's just that the game hits upon the limitations of the combat system quite quickly.
I want a launcher. I want a launcher so that I can pelt arrows into them.
When I started the game, I had difficulty for a while because I didn't do the Great Fairies at all until like mid-game.
Same.
So I struggled for quite a while on that front.
And it's like, oh, a moblin, here goes half your health bar.
It gets to the point where you're like, I need to go do the Great Fairies now because I'm not having fun.
By the time I got there, I was able to instantly upgrade my basic Hylian set to level 3. And then I was untouchable.
Yeah. Interestingly, being afflicted with gloom, there are armors that will prevent you from getting hit with gloom.
Yep.
They are not as good to wear as a fully upgraded Hylian set because you just take less base damage with the Hylian set anyway. So it's, that's kind of dumb as well. And that's partly probably because it's harder to upgrade that armor, but still.
There's a bunch of utility armor, and like it's probably going to take you a while to fully upgrade the Hylian set. So before you have that, like, I mean, I still, like, throughout the whole game, even with the fully upgraded Hylian set, I was switching armors a lot based on...
I
still
do.
do.
Yeah.
Especially, like, when you're in a weather area, like, I would switch to, like, cold armor and stuff like that.
Yeah, the only time I really switched armor, I think, was when I was flying. So when I was in the air and I would put on the full, like, dive set, whatever you want to call it. I can't remember what it is.
Yeah, the glide set.
The glide
is
set's
fun.
really good.
I was also... always playing with a handicap because at all times I always had the Korok mask on, so and that cannot be upgraded. It has 1 armor.
I've been wearing the Korok mask a lot, yeah.
I had much fewer issues in combat, I think, than most of you did because of the specific way that I played, which is that every single blood moon, I would go to the underground Colosseum and kill the 4 Lynels there.
Once I was capable of killing Lynels, I did that as well.
I did it instantly, pretty much, because I know how to kill Lynels from Breath of the Wild. It was one of my favorite things to do, and I noticed a specific thing that one of the weapons in the game has, which is that it quadruples in power on the last hit, and you can just kill Lynels almost instantly with that weapon, because it never degrades when you kill Lynels with it.
When you do the mount.
Oh.
So you're fusing something very high level to it, and you're quadrupling its power. It does like 250 to 300 damage a hit when you hit with it. Like, it is obscene. So I would kill 4 of those Lynels every single blood moon. That's 80 crystallized charges.
Yeah.
That's like 100 something arrows, like maybe 120 arrows.
Yeah, you get loads of arrows in this.
It's the shields, which are all excellent, and it's also
The triple shot bows. Oh man, so good.
the triple shot bows and their materials as well. And their materials are the best fusing stuff in the game. So I had no issues with damage sponge because I would just fuse like a silver Lynel Saberhorn, which is like plus 55 to any fucking thing I wanted to, and it would instantly fucking like 3-shot most enemies that aren't silver.
But you did grind out Lynels, which is kind of against the spirit of the thing.
But this is the problem. It takes me less than 4.5 minutes to do that every blood moon.
The Lynel Colosseum is proof that the combat in the game is good.
It can be.
In some places.
I have not found the Lynel
I haven't found that yet.
Colosseum yet, so I am struggling on all fronts.
The second thing that you get from that is also really helpful because the first time you do it, you get a treasure chest with a headpiece that lets you ignore combat effectively. Like it's the I am stealth to all sentient enemies mask. And at that point, you can just run around in the depths for the most part, and you can mine Zonite without interrupting the bokoblins. You don't have to engage with them at that point.
That's interesting.
You can do all sorts of stuff on the overworld. Like, even Lynels won't recognize you for, like, a good minute if you've got that on.
Okay.
Like, you can just... And this is the gameplay loop that I would do, which is every blood moon I would go into the depths, I would kill those Lynels, I would do a loop of that immediate area and get all the Zonite from it, and that would feed my need for Zonite so I could build my hover bike to traverse the overworld. And I would do that like every 7 hours or what it is, because that's how long like it is between each blood moon. And I would just do that and it would be fine.
Is there a quest that leads you to the Lionel Coliseum?
There are some Yiga journals that mention where it is, but I haven't found it. I haven't really been looking, but there's always a Colosseum on the surface above where there's a Colosseum in the depths. So if you find all the Colosseums on the surface, you could go and find it. But there's no way of like necessarily knowing which one it's going to be, because there's quite a few of those. I've been to a few Colosseums and it's just like fight a bunch of Horriblins or fight a bunch of Moblins, and I've just not found.
You know,
yeah, I'll fight
the bosses
fight the
again.
King Gliok.
I enjoy the combat a lot, but the main issue, and this is the main issue I have with the game generally, is that it's so good the first time you ever encounter something. Like, the first time that I see something that I don't understand is absolutely fucking magical in this game. Like, first time I see a Gliok, what the fuck is that? Why is there lightning? Why? Oh god, I'm dead. It's all over.
Then the first time you kill it as well, it's like, oh, I am a god.
And then you have like 1 or 2 more times where it's still interesting, and then you work out, oh, well, this is what I'm doing here. Like, I'm just putting fucking eyeballs on my arrows, and like this is trivialized, or whatever else it may be. Like, I'm slapping this Lionel's ass for the next like 4 minutes.
This is a problem with the design of a lot of the bosses and big enemies in this game, in that they all have like gimmicks to fighting them, with the exception of the Lionel. So with the Lionels, you got to get really good, but a lot of the other stuff is just like, do this one technique, use one of your abilities at this specific time, and the boss is easy. And it feels like that's kind of a wasted opportunity, because it means that subsequent fights are just not fun.
Gleox hate him with this one trick. You'll never guess.
The problem with the flux constructs is that the first time you do a flux construct, it's like, oh, wow, I'm a genius. I just reversed time on these cubes so I could fly up to its head and kill it.
Oh,
yeah.
So cool.
And then every other time you fight them, it's a really fucking boring fight.
I never did that. The way that I do it is I ultra hand the particular cube, which is its brain.
Yeah.
You pull it out with ultra hand, and then you just whack it when it's on the ground.
Yeah, I mean, that's the other thing that you need to do to beat it. And I didn't realize that until I killed at least 7 of them, I don't think.
Same.
Yeah, okay. I found that on my first one, so I feel like that's okay.
Once you learn the strat that I used to kill like all the mini bosses, I just like one shot all of them, which was get a 5 times arrow that shoots a bow that shoots 5 arrows, attach a Gibdo bone to it, and then just like enter bullet time and shoot the weak point, and then it just literally kills anything.
And Gibdo bones are so easy to get as well. It's like I have just supercharged my arrows.
They're so easy. I always have like 50 on hands.
Really late game, you start finding these things. What are they called? They're called like ceremonial dagger or something.
Ancient arrowheads or something.
I only found one of the ancient arrows, yeah.
I've got 2 of them. There's a guy you can buy them from at one point, but like, I have never used it. It does 50 damage and it's only really worth attaching to arrows, I think. A Gibdo bone does 40 damage and are also single use, and I have 75 of them in my inventory. Like, which am I going to use?
And you can make them even stronger if you have a set that increases bone damage. Like, you can do that as well. Like, the highest damage that I've ever been able to get in the game is using that set with a Molduga jawbone on the thing that does like 4 times damage, and it's in fucking insane. It's fucking stupid.
I like that. I didn't know
That's
that.
so
That's
cool.
fun.
I was going to say, we haven't really talked about reversal or rewind properly, but I mean, you don't. People who are listening to this will have played the game anyway, so you know how it works. There's not. I think the fun thing about it is there's a lot of weird stuff you can do to like break puzzles with it.
Yeah.
By just kind of dropping things and then riding them up, or like I remember MD showing me a video he made where you're supposed to make like a log contraption that's like not supposed to roll off something, and he was like, fuck that, I'm just going to reverse it and then platform off these logs as they roll around. So you can do some neat stuff with it.
Yeah, I was in the same position where like I got it and they make you solve that rotating gear puzzle, and I was like, is this all we're going to do with it? Are we just going to make gears rotate the other way? And it took me quite a long time to realize that it has loads and loads and loads of like really wacky uses.
Yeah.
Like that you can just think of, like, you know, oh, let me reflect an enemy's projectile. Oh, let me ride a thing that upstream. Oh, let me, you know, do this to go up and get on this thing. There's a shrine.
Really helpful for undoing mistakes.
Yeah, there's a reversal shrine that has a load of really fun reversal puzzles. So overall, by the end of the game, maybe not the most useful ability in the whole game, but I was really enjoying it.
It's definitely the one I use the least throughout the whole game. One thing I love about it is that it has insane range. Like
Yeah.
there was one time where I dropped something off of a sky island on accident, and I was able to pinpoint it all the way down the
Yes,
surface
yes,
and reverse it all the way back up.
So long as you can see a pixel of it, you can fucking reverse it.
Yeah.
So I had another moment, much with Ascend, where I would just forget that I could do things, and I would solve puzzles in very wrong ways until I figured it out. So it took me longer than I'm comfortable admitting to realize what the blocks in the overworld were for.
The ones that fall from the sky.
Yes, but what I would do instead, and this is me applying complex brain to simple brain problem. If you throw a spear, it spins in the air, and you can attach a like a wooden board to it, and then you can get on it, and when you reverse it, it kind of it keeps its momentum while spinning. So if you put it in the right direction, you are just flung thousands of meters into the air.
What's your problem? Why can't you play video games normally?
I don't know.
I haven't done this, but I've just thought of a really good application. Get a boomerang, throw it at an enemy, and just reverse it repeatedly so that it flies back and forth across the enemy's head. Something that Moogle just reminded me as well. Two-handed weapons. You can fuse a shield to a two-handed weapon and then use it to parry.
Yes, you can. It's very
I
good.
didn't know that.
Oh my god.
It's so good. You can block normally with it as well. It just acts like the shield is on the weapon.
I think, we've nitpicked a lot about the balance, but all of these abilities are really fun to use. The game has lots of interesting applications of them. Yeah, and they are so much better and so much more you can do with them than the powers in the first game.
Very much so.
Yeah, they all feel like prototypes of what we have now.
It's going to feel real sad if I ever decide to play Breath of the Wild again. Oh, I can make a bomb. Great.
Oh man, I can make ice.
I miss making ice. I miss the ice power.
Why would you miss the ice power? You can just throw an ice fruit in the water.
No, the ice pillar was cool for stopping enemies from running at you and stuff, which you can't do anymore.
I never use that shit ever. The only one that I kind of miss is stasis.
I also miss some of the more unique weapons in Breath of the Wild because they've just been removed. Several of the enemy weapon types just gone. The unique elemental swords and elemental greatswords are all gone as well.
But you can stick a topaz on your sword.
You can, but I don't have a glowing electricity sword. I don't want the effect, I want the look of the fucking thing.
They were really nice, and the fact that you could see them charge up as well. That was a cool detail.
Visually, it's less interesting because there are less weapons in the game, and I feel why have we removed content?
There's less weapons, but there's now infinite weapons.
I was ambivalent about the sequel to Breath of the Wild because they hadn't really shown much in any of the trailers and previews. And I was like, I don't know if I want to explore the same overworld again, and I don't know if I'm going to care that much about the Sky Islands. Now, one of those things was true. Does anyone on Earth really... they're fine. Don't get me wrong, there's nothing wrong with them. In each Sky Island, there's a couple of cool puzzles. There's a few unique Sky Islands, which are fun, that have different visuals, but nobody really gives a shit about them, right?
I love a lot of the Sky Islands. I just wish there was more Sky. I think there's some really cool ideas up there, and that feel underutilized. The two, I think there's two or three, the big spheres that have puzzles inside of them. Those are cool.
I liked finding them, but if there were 70 of them, I'd have been like, oh, great, another sphere.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not saying make more of those. I'm saying make more cool, unique shit up there.
Put a triangle up there, a square, a rhombus, something, another shape.
The trouble with the Sky Islands is it's so difficult to get to some of them that it's not you get to it and you're like, oh, my reward for getting here was not actually as interesting as I was hoping. Some areas are cool.
Yeah.
It's oh, cool, anti-grav area or whatever it is.
That's part of a dungeon, so I'm not really counting that as a unique Sky Island.
There's other gravity areas as well.
Oh, really? Okay.
There's also the puzzles up there where you use Ultra Hand to manipulate like pieces of the geometry.
Yeah.
And those are really cool, but they also felt there's like 3 of them in the whole game, and I feel they could have done way more with that.
Yeah, there's not enough.
I don't think in terms of like the visuals and the amount of mechanics they have, I wouldn't have wanted any more Sky Islands unless they were going to do something drastically different with them. They'll probably make DLC for this game, and I'm betting you they put more Sky Islands in.
There's just not enough, and the rewards that you get aren't that interesting. Like, they try and push you up there. So this is like the push and pull of the different areas of the game. They try and push you to the sky so that you can get the maps that lead you to like the special treasures in the depths.
Also, you need the device dispensers. That's why I went to every
Yes.
Sky
Yes.
Island like really early in the game.
Yeah, those are the most useful things up there.
And yeah, so the Sky Islands, there's not much to them. I think they probably led with them as, you know, as like an image on the box or whatever, because they're visually unique.
Yeah.
It's a very good thing to market.
Yeah, whenever I see Sky Islands in a video game, I'm like, oh, I see. So the developers didn't want to spend as much time making terrain because Sky Islands are easy to make. That's
Yeah.
why they're in games.
I thought they would be more integral to the entire game, honestly.
Yeah, me too. And I'm glad that they weren't, because the depths is better.
I think the Sky Islands, there are a couple Sky Islands where they build on verticality, so it
Yeah.
turns the game into more of a platformer. I think if they did something more like that, it would have been fine. But the punishment for falling is like, you know, getting over it levels of, because you just fall all the way back to the bottom.
Why does Link not just use reverse arm on himself?
Because then he'd turn into a fetus and die.
That's true. There's one more thing that you get that's unique from the Sky Islands as well, which is the
Sage's
the
William.
Sage's William,
Oh,
which
useless.
completely fucking worthless.
They're worthless.
Thanks. I hate it.
The other thing I wanted to say about the Sky Islands is that the Sky Island labyrinths suck my fucking nuts.
Yeah. They're a bit
They
boring.
can fuck right off. Like, you do one of them and you're like, okay, that was all right. I just flew around at rapid speed in the paraglider suit, like rubbing myself against every wall until I found the solution. To have to do that 3 times, fuck off.
I thought they were fun.
Nah, those suck.
If you select the quest on the minimap, it tells you where the terminals are.
I know, but still, it is just an exercise in rapidly zooming around the labyrinth.
I wish there was more gameplay in them.
I was so disappointed by the labyrinths in the depths because it's just like
Yeah, I wanted to have a cool labyrinth in darkness,
Yeah.
and there was nothing there. I was like, this is where you should have put the fucking labyrinth.
Yeah.
because you don't have your mini map either.
Yeah.
Because the minimap just kind of breaks the labyrinths, and so like being able to do that without one, and like maybe needing to like breadcrumb with
White blooms.
like dropping stuff or something could have been really cool. And it's just like, oh, it's like there's just a construct down here, and there's like no like actual maze.
Kill the construct.
Take his construct.
On the like above ground labyrinths as well, there is a literal trail of breadcrumbs to follow because the like researcher who's researching the labyrinth has just left pine cones for you to follow to the exit.
There's a lot of nice things in this game where it's like, I know you did this in Breath of the Wild, so I'll help you skip this. It's cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't mind it on the surface because they were ones I've already done, but I was
Yeah, I
disappointed by
suppose that's fair.
the one on the depths.
So the depth is really good because number one, it's a whole fucking new overworld to explore. Number one, there are lots of material reasons to go down there, from cool weapons and items to Zoanite to crystalline charges to the fights with Master Koga and doing all of that stuff, to dungeons. And also, I think the reason that I like the depth so much is because having all of the vehicles and items and new traversal methods makes traversing the overworld really easy. And the developers realized that they needed somewhere that would be a more hostile environment, where it'd be difficult to get around, where you would have to use more ingenuity, both with devices and where, particularly with the light routes, like where it's completely dark when you go down there initially, and you have to like use the light routes to gradually light it up. Like, light is a resource that you have to like ration, and you have to plan your trip very carefully. It's really clever and really fun to explore. I don't think there's necessarily enough variety in stuff to do down there.
I think that's the only real problem with it.
Yeah.
But I think the area, it looks really cool. It plays really cool. I love all of the like, you know, the like weird alien flora and fauna and stuff, and just like the visuals of it. And it's a really clever solution to like a gameplay problem.
And the glue mechanic's also very cool.
Here's my disagreement. Number one, the overworld is exactly the same but reversed. That's my first counterpoint.
It's not everywhere.
I get it. I don't hate it, okay? Here's my second problem. I'm gonna build a fucking hover bike and put a giant light seed on top of it.
Yeah.
Problem fucking solved. I don't have to think about resource management anymore.
This goes back to our balance discussion from earlier, but yeah, you can just break it.
The first couple of trips I had down there were very atmospheric, and I don't know if enjoyed is the right word. I was engaged with it. Like it was interesting.
It feels like an expedition, like it feels a lot riskier
Yes.
than the
Yeah.
surface
Yeah.
with the enemies like
Yeah.
doing gloom damage and the no light. So you have to like
I felt like I needed to prepare when I went down there.
Yes.
And you don't get any food down there, so you have your resources you go in with.
So you have to plan your trip, prepare carefully, do an expedition, get a few like really high value resources, and then get out of there before you die.
Yeah, I didn't spend much time in there by the end. Like, I very few light routes. I have maybe 40, I think, in comparison to like the 120 odd shrines I've done. I just didn't see the reason to engage with it after a while. Like, outside of very specific reasons to go down, I basically didn't.
I think the earlier you are in the game, when you start exploring the depths, the more interesting it is. So I
Yes.
remember going down there for the first time, and even just like diving down the hole, and it gives you that weird horn blare
I
when you
love
go
the
down.
horn blare.
And
Yeah, it's fucking good.
it gives you this like real sense of like, I'm entering into the unknown and I'm kind of scared about
Yeah.
Yes.
this. And then the fact that you can't see jack shit, and like there's weird enemies around that fuck you up, and you can't like tell that you're just going to be bumping into them, and there's just shit all over the floor that's going to fuck you up as well. It's like, okay, this is fun and interesting to explore, especially when I've only got like 3 or 4 hearts right at the start of the game.
Yeah, very much
Because
so.
it's very high risk, and like Katsan says, the rewards you get Zonite, which you've never had before. You get, which you don't really know what you're doing with at the start, to be fair, but when you actually figure out why you need it, it's really good. You're getting bomb flowers, which seem like they're really powerful when you first go in.
Oh, right, yeah. It's worth it to go to the depths of the fucking bomb flowers alone.
It sure is.
You're getting a lot of like just interesting new content, but then later in the game, when stuff's not as much of a threat to you, and you've already got an inventory stacked with food that you can eat, you know how to counteract gloom because you've got Sundelions now, and potentially you've got access to more vehicles to get around more easily. It's like, okay, I'm kind of just, this is my checklist now. I've already found all of the what do they call them? All of the quarries. So I've already done the Master Koga stuff. I've already found all the unique stuff that's down here. Now I'm just kind of ticking off. There's another light route I found. There's another, and like maybe you find some useless hats along the way, so you can cosplay as the hero of time or the hero of winds or whatever, and you're never going to upgrade that armor because you cannot find enough shit to do it.
It really irritates me that it's all like novelty items that are useless and difficult to upgrade.
I don't mind the novelty items. I like collecting novelty items.
I didn't mind it.
I like collecting them. I like collecting the light roots for themselves, but again, it's like a really great gameplay concept that is arguably just hurt by bad balance.
I think familiarity breeds contempt a lot in this game. Like, when you first do something, it's really interesting.
Yeah.
And then it very rapidly becomes just very rote and dull afterwards.
But if it was just designed a bit differently, then it wouldn't. They don't fundamentally have to change the content or add that much. Just fixing the balance would fix it.
I was thinking about how I would maybe like to change it, and I think the depths is maybe too big. Probably what I would do is, you know how it's all separated by the rivers on the overworld, so you can't get from one section of the map to the other necessarily in the depths. I think having each chasm connect to its own little, not shrine exactly, like a little bit bigger than a shrine, a bit more open-ended than a shrine, but like it's got its own unique kind of
Self-contained areas with a more unique aesthetic and mechanics.
Yeah.
There are a few depths areas like that.
So like the Sky Islands.
kind of like the Sky Islands, but yeah, so giving you like an actual challenge to overcome in each chasm you fall down, rather than just like, here is a big wide area to explore that's really not got a lot in it, to be honest, when you get down to the nitty gritty. So yeah, I think that's probably what I would want to see from it. But I like the depths in principle. It just gets a bit boring after you've been there for a while.
Yeah.
I like that it's the whole world again. Like, I mean, the first time I went down there, and it dawned on me that, oh, there's a whole ass other overworld down there. It was such a cool reveal, and I wouldn't trade that for anything personally.
Yeah, the first time I went down, I was like, oh, so it's like a really big cave? And I was like, oh no, it just keeps going.
It just keeps going.
Oh no, there's another map that I've got.
They didn't show like the depths. I mean, they showed off caves in the marketing.
Yes.
But like, I never would have anticipated just a whole additional overworld down there, and it was just so cool.
I got all the light routes because it was fun to explore.
I enjoyed getting all the light routes.
It's like the most Zelda thing in the world, which is a second overworld, which is identical but like different to.
They're doing it again.
I hadn't really thought that. Yeah, it's like the Dark World.
It is just the Dark World at the end of the day. That's all it is.
They can't help themselves.
I like it in concept. I just didn't find any real reasons to stay down there. I'd go down there when the game prompted me to. Like, if the game said, like, there's something very specific down here, like, either I got a map to a treasure or something, I would make time to do that, but I didn't find it that interesting otherwise.
Oh, look, it's Ravio's trousers. These will help me climb sideways, but I can never upgrade them from having 2 defense.
Correct.
I found a Midna helmet down there, which protects against gloom damage. And I was like, great, this is wonderful. Take it to the fairy. She's like, you can't upgrade this. I'm like, fuck you.
All of the amiibo shit, I don't think you can upgrade. I don't think you can upgrade any of the amiibo. I think the Link stuff specifically you can, like the different Link like costumes.
You can, but they need star fragments.
So the other interesting quest line in the depths is everyone you meet in the depths is secretly a Yiga clan member.
It's
sure
so
are.
funny
It's great.
because they contrive ever more ridiculous setups to the payoff.
Like, some of them will be like, oh, dude, I stepped in this gloom, give me a Sunderline. And then just be like, got you fucking idiot. It's me, the Yiga.
If you don't give them the Sunderline, so they're like, oh, so the hero isn't even going to give away 1 Sunderline to save me.
It's wonderful.
It's such bullshit. I love it.
It's really funny.
Great. I love it.
Have you had the Yiga encounter up on the surface where like there's just a random banana there, and if you pick up the banana,
Yeah.
they appear? Have you tried doing that? But have you tried like wearing the Yiga gear when you do it? Because they all go, shush, you'll give the game away. Don't take that banana, you fool.
Every Yiga in the game has unique dialogue to like talk to Link if he's in the Yiga clan armor. So there's one where like if you're near a Yiga clan base, they'll be like, dude, don't wear your armor near the base. People will find out. And if you're in the depths, they'll like say different stuff to you. It's really funny. There's so much contextual dialogue in this game where like even just little stuff like whenever you meet Penn at the stables, depending on like if it's raining, he'll be like, oh, no rain or sleet or whatever will keep you from a story. If you run at him and scare off all the little birds that are around him, he'll like say, oh, dude, don't scare off the birds. There's so many, like any NPC who is more than just a generic blank face NPC will have unique dialogue related to the time of day or the weather or what you're wearing or like loads of funny stuff like that. It's really nice.
There's a lot of nice attention to detail in this game.
I put on the Yiga mask in the Gerudo town, and all of the guards fucking flipped their shit instantly and then went, wait, you're Link, why are you wearing that? You dumbass, stop wearing that, we'll let you out of jail now.
There are some instances though where I'm like, I do a specific thing that NPC's talking about, and they're like, they don't interact at all. There's a guy in Lookout Landing who's working on decayed weapons, like, oh man, I'd really like to see some fucking pristine weapons, and I drop some pristine weapons, I equip some pristine weapons, and he doesn't react at all. There's also the side quest with the Gerudo archaeologist who's like, oh, I need to find these orbs. Do you know what these orbs are? I go find some orbs, I drop them next to her, and she's like, what the fuck are these orbs? Have you seen these orbs? I want to see some orbs.
She's looking for a specific one in a specific order, and that is
an actual quest.
I know it is.
It's really unfortunate.
There's the tower in, I don't remember where it is, but there's like the guy who's like talking about like mushrooms, and he's just like, man, like I could really like I could really go for some mushrooms. And so I'm like, oh, I'll give you some mushrooms. I drop them in front of them, doesn't work. I try to cook some and try to give it to them, doesn't work. And it turns out you just need to go into the mushroom cave and ascend into the tower instead. I was like, this dialogue is not what it should be.
I didn't have any problem with that. I got it first time. I knew the game wanted me to go into the cave.
I thought it wanted me to go into the cave and get him mushrooms.
I think the one that is maybe the most upsetting is there's 3 Gerudo women at one of the stables who are talking about tracking down Link to mate with him so that they can have like the offspring of the hero. And you can stand there with the Master Sword equipped with like the Hero of Time outfit on or whatever, and none of them will make any different comments about it. Like, even though you are quite clearly the hero, which kind of sucks.
You're quite clearly DTF.
It's funny to me that everyone in Breath of the Wild is kind of like riding your dick about it, and I don't care for that. Whereas everyone in this game is is just really pushy and wants you to just like do things all the time.
At the same time, I like that you occasionally still have the asshole like chat choice where you can just choose to be a complete dickball about things. I also like how the guy who's looking for the Master Gourd, you can show him the Master Sword and he goes, oh, well, that makes sense, I guess, doesn't it? Like, I enjoy that. I enjoyed finding a use for the flower wreath from Kakariko. Like, eventually I found a fucking use for it. Like, that was nice. Like, there's many more of those like little touches. I guess it makes it more disappointing when the little touch that you expect to be there isn't, just because it's there so many times.
Here's another thing that pissed me off, is that everyone has forgotten who the fuck Link is after the 5 or so years.
It's true.
And I'm going to these places that I've been to before that I fucking saved. And they're like, wait, who are you again? I was like, you ungrateful fuckers. And in the back of my head, I'm the hero of goddamn time. Fucking, I banged Zelda.
No, I like it. I genuinely like that NPCs just don't give a shit.
This is me, but in Breath of the Wild, I felt like I made a connection with these characters. I like fucking made friendships, and then I'm in the next game, and it's not like I've disappeared for 100 years. I've just been fighting about with Zelda or whatever, but I go to these places and like, wait, who are you again? I was like, you fucking asshole. And in the back of my head I was like, if I get to fucking Terrytown and they don't fucking know who I am, I'm gonna burn it to the ground. And I get there and they're like, they kind of flip it. I don't know if they were aware of this, but they kind of flip it. They're like, wait, who's this? But then I'm like, oh yes, Link, of course. I didn't recognize you. I was like, you fucking lucky motherfucker.
Well, the thing with Tarrytown is that when you complete Tarrytown in Breath of the Wild, it's been gentrified by people who don't know who the fuck you are. So none of them know who you are except the founders of it by the end of Breath of the Wild.
Put a plaque up! Give me a statue, goddammit!
You're literally the boyfriend of the princess and her sworn protector knight. I don't understand why.
I killed Ganon!
I don't need the game to have every NPC give me some variant of, oh, thank you for saving the world, you're so cool. I'd rather they say something fucking different.
I have low self-esteem.
It depends where you are. Like, the Zora's Domain, most people know you. If you're in the major towns, then people tend to know who you are. But yeah, there's some people you would expect to know you.
Hestu's one that bothered me a lot.
Fuck
He
Hestu.
was just like, oh, who are you? And I was like, are you fucking kidding me?
Fuck you, buddy. I'm that guy who gave you 900 pieces of shit like 6 years ago.
You shouldn't have given him 900 pieces of shit. I think it's weird. The game implies that Link did everything, every side quest in Breath of the Wild.
It sure does.
But then he just spent like 5 years doing absolutely nothing and like not going anywhere and talking to anyone.
Well, he just went with the princess. Like, I think they say a couple of times that like you went with the princess across the country.
You bone the princess because
You sure do.
Your house in what's it called?
In Hatino.
Hatino, the house is then called Zelda's house.
Zelda's
so
house.
like, you know what went on.
That is the one thing that fucking pissed me off, because she's got a single bed in there. I think Link's just homeless.
No, he
No, you live
sleeps
there.
in that bed with her.
In the fucking tiny
They're
single
tiny
bed. What does he
people.
curl up like a dog?
No, he sleeps on the floor like
Sleeps
a
on the
dog.
floor like a dog.
That's what he does.
Oh, that's even harder.
I think there's diary entries from Zelda's diary that's like, Link doesn't wash anymore.
She's got like a little like cave with a diary in it, and like you can find. I think there's like the hair tie there, isn't there?
Yeah.
You want to change your hairstyle.
And she's just like, Link has stopped washing. He feels like he needs to be with me every moment of the day. I don't know why, but he hasn't shat in 6 years.
Link is needy.
Wash with him, Zelda. God.
The main quest line in the depths is tracking down the master of the Yiga clan, Master Koga, and fighting him as he makes increasingly absurd contraptions to fight you with, because he basically has, like, it doesn't make sense. He's looking for the auto build ability, which you find at the start of his quest line, which is kind of annoying that, like, the game doesn't tell you, by the way, you this is the most important thing in the game to go and get. Please do this quest line straight away.
It gives you many different hints.
It hints it. It tries to hint. It does really try to nudge you in that direction. I ignored it. That was my problem, which is why I'm not going to complain about it.
Yeah. It took me a while to get it.
It's also how you get the glider, right? You have to do, it's not quite, but you have to do the first little area you get to and
Yes.
like complete the first Skyview Tower, which is important to do because otherwise you can't really do anything. But like you can miss out on getting the glider for quite a while, like Mitch did, and it's
I did.
stupid that they don't give it to you at the end of the tutorial.
Before we started recording, I mentioned that I didn't get the glider. I didn't know it was in the game, and so I got stuck on a shrine that required the glider, one of the first shrines I entered, and I also died a couple times falling from the hot air balloon. The way I play this and Breath of the Wild is I beat the tutorial section, and then I just wander. I don't bother with
I
the
do
main
the same.
quest.
That's what I did, yeah, and I didn't get the glider, and I was worried that it wasn't a thing in this game.
I was very worried that it wasn't a thing in this game. I was anxious about it. I was like, give me my glider, which is why when the game was like, you should definitely go here and do this one thing, hint, 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 I was like, oh, okay, I'll go here and do the one thing.
They really should have just given it to you like right before you jump.
I feel like they should either do that, or what they should do is have you drop into a pool of water and Lookout Landing and then immediately be assaulted by, you're fucking here. Okay, here's your glider, by the way. Because that should be the first fucking thing that the game gives you.
I would have quite happily gone off to wander and do other things, but I knew I wasn't like I'd been reading other things from other people who were playing the game early because it leaked, and I was like, okay, I know I need to get the glider, and I know I need to get auto build because otherwise I'm not going to have as fun a time with this. So I did that. But getting back to Koga, it's his boss fights are just hilarious. He's a funny character.
They're some of the best boss fights in the game as well.
Yeah, they're pretty neat, and it's the reason really why you're exploring the depths. And some aspects of it are locked, I think, until you complete some of the other major quests. I don't think you can get to the quarry that's under the Rito village until you complete the.
Yeah, you have to do the Rito thing first. Yeah.
Which again, the game really wants you to go and do first. It's like, damn, you should really go check out Rito village, huh? And I was like, no, I'm doing everything in the wrong order.
I did Rito last specifically because of that.
The game, it's a very non-linear game, but there are some things that like really help if you have them. And the designers were like, okay, we'll just suggest that players do this first if they want to get the item that was like, you can't have it both ways, right? Either you let it be a non-linear game and you ignore the suggestions, in which case you don't have the thing, or you take the suggestions, which you do have the thing. They're giving you that freedom, so don't complain if you decide.
Breath of the Wild didn't do it. Breath of the Wild gave me freedom.
Breath of the Wild does do it. Breath of the Wild strongly suggests that you do all of the Zora stuff first.
Yeah.
Does it?
Yeah, it sends you to Kakariko first, and then you're supposed to do Zora from there.
It definitely sends you to Zora first, for sure.
I guess.
And then along that way, it introduces you to several things, including the first Great Fairy and Hestu, which this game does as well, just on the way to the Rito village instead. Again, if we're talking about tutorials, this is another thing that Breath of the Wild does better, which is that it shows you the king using the glider, and then he's like, if you do a little errand for me, I'll give it to you. I don't understand why they couldn't have done that again.
It really needed to say, this is where the glider is, you dumb fuck. Come and get the glider.
As soon as you exit the cutscene from falling, there should be an NPC right in front of you who says, "Oh, I just see you fly from the sky. or whatever and land in that. Do you land in a pool of water? You do, don't you?
Yeah, you
And,
land in water.
there should have been an
yeah.
NPC right next to the lake that's waving at you that said, "Wow, you almost died. Good thing you fell in that water. Do you want this glider so that if you fall from a great height, you don't die?"
Yeah, I agree.
I hard
agree.
agree on that. Yeah.
Would players have liked that after 3 hours of tutorial handholding?
Yes, because it gives me the fucking glider immediately.
It's the glider, yeah.
Yeah, fair enough.
Yeah, and it's not even like in another tutorial.
It's just a guy saying, "Here, it's the glider."
The glider is like the most important thing in the game.
Yeah, okay, fair enough.
It could have even been like there's a rock right next to that pond. He could have been standing on top of that, being like, "Hey, come over here," glid off, and you're like, "Hey, that's my glider," and then follow him to like the lookout landing where he's landed, and then
Yeah,
he gives you the
exactly.
glider and says, "Hey, I got a job for you up this Skyview tower," and at that point you can be like, "Nah, fuck off, I'm doing my own thing."
Hard agree, 100%.
Or you can do the sensible thing and go, you know what? Getting the map is the second most important thing after getting the glider. So, like, you know what? The first thing that I did in the game, I think, was go to every glider location, every Skyview Tower location, because I want the map.
Same.
I want the fucking map.
Yeah, I did that early as well.
There's fewer Skyview towers in this game. Most have a little gimmick to get them.
They're cool. I like them.
I like the little
I like the
puzzle you
gimmick
have
as
to
well,
do to
yeah.
get into them.
It's better than climbing.
It's much more fun than just laborious climbing.
Yeah, it was much more interesting.
Can we talk for a second about like how the map has changed? Because like I think it's a really good idea that they do like a time skip, because it makes exploring the map rewarding again, because you go to a place and you're like, oh, what will have happened here in the last 5 years? Some of the places I feel like changed a lot, and I was really happy with the changes they made. And there's even small ones like fucking like children have like visibly like grown up,
Yes.
Yeah, that's a good change.
which is cool. Some of the locations I didn't really think they did that much with. I was kind of disappointed.
Speaking of growing up, has that weird like pedophilic relationship between the Zora
Oh,
and
God.
the like grown man changed at all?
You know, I found a quest for them, and it was like, they're stuck at the opposite ends of this cave. You have to unite them. And I went into the cave, and I was like, I'm leaving these two apart.
I'm not going to enable this behavior.
Is she still like a little child?
Yes!
I mean, they age very slowly, okay?
Nintendo, why?
She's 1,000 years old.
I had a weird feeling about this. I was thinking about like the towns. I don't think I've spent a lot of time in the towns in this game compared with in Breath of the Wild, because I'm like, I've been to these towns before and they're not that different. I think Tarrytown has probably changed the most. I don't think I even like I think as soon as I was done in the Goron village, I was like, see you guys, I'm out. I don't give a shit about any of this because I've already been here and it looks the same.
So the like different like species towns are kind of cool in that like they start all fucked up and you do a quest to restore them to their previous state.
Yeah.
Which is great, because in Breath of the Wild it was always like, here's like a nebulous threat, but the town didn't really seem that affected, whereas in this that's one thing they get right. But the only one that's really changed is the Gerudo town, which has loads of underground areas now.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, Gerudo Town I spent a lot of time in because it was fun and new, and it was fun to go do the like dating like side quest where they teach the women how to date Link and stuff. That was cool.
I did the ball side quest, which I enjoyed a lot as well.
I like
Ball
the
side quest was
archaeology.
good.
Some of the other towns didn't change as much, like, and also I think I liked the Lurelin restoration quest. That was fun.
Yeah.
No.
Yes.
No.
Yes.
Yeah, I liked
Yes.
it. I had fun.
Yes.
I liked having to swoop in, fuck up all those pirates, like have a little, like an extended combat where if you get fucked, you've got to start it again. Like that was nice.
Yep.
But then for Bolson, who I will not say a bad word against because he's an excellent character.
He's wonderful.
It's not Pride Month anymore. You can say it.
For Bolson to be like, okay, go get 15 logs and then get like 200 bits of rice or something,
It's
and
10.
I'm like,
It's
okay,
like
I'll go
10 bits of
I'll go
rice.
cut grass for like half an hour.
It's a very not much.
It's not difficult.
Then for him to have me place a tree in the same exact manner
Yeah,
for
it's a
5
bullshit
different
quest.
buildings, I was like, why? Why do I need to do this 5 times? Like, let me make it unique each time. Like, there was one where you had to get garbage out of a boat or something. Like, that was at least unique. The rest of them, it's like, don't just make me put a tree in this house.
Okay, I'll clarify. I like the story of it. I like,
Yes.
restoring the village and seeing this like burnt and destroyed village come back to life. I like the stupid little cutscene where Bolson is like, thank you for accepting me for being
A builder.
Gay, but I won't say
It's not
that
Pride Month anymore. You can say it.
And then he does a stupid little dance. I like that.
He's taught it to the children.
He sure
He's
has.
teaching our children to be gay.
He's LGBT propaganda to the children. Yeah, all of that stuff was good. On the other hand, I fucking hated the Hateno Village quest.
Oh, I'm gonna fucking have an argument with. I like Hatina Village a lot in this fucking game.
No, go and talk to every NPC in the town. That's boring shit.
And I liked CC, but number one, talking to every NPC fucking sucks, especially because it doesn't tell you where they are. And second off, the resolution of that plot point is the fucking most banal possible thing they could have said.
I think it's funny.
I mean, it's twee and banal.
Yeah, it sets it up so that, like, it almost seems like you might be able to swing the events of
No.
the election, so you can, like, make one of them win or the other. That would have been the better outcome, because it would
That'd
have
been so
made
cool,
that
yeah.
quest replayable the next time you do it. You can be like, oh, but what if I make Cece win this time?
Yeah, and also, number one, you both find, you both, like, it implies that they might be doing scandalous things, and then they're both doing really boring things.
It's a Nintendo game. You're not going to see them, like, killing babies or something.
I know, I wasn't expecting them to find them, like, fucking, but I was expecting something. And then when you do have the election, instead of fucking having it, they're like, let's put aside our differences and work together. And I'm like, did a 7-year-old write this fucking quest?
Well, it's
Yes,
for
because it's
7-year-olds.
fucking Zelda.
No, Zelda has had mature and complicated stories before. They've just chosen not to do it.
But you won't do the pedophile quest, Catsman.
It's true.
When I get to the end of the fucking pedophile quest, does the guy impale himself on a spike? Because if not, I'm leaving them apart.
I like the Hateno quest a lot. I like that it's similar to the reasons I liked Tarrytown in the original, which is that it gives you a reason to go and talk to people and like use the fact that there are named individuals, there are people in the world with their own like little things going on. I like that. It's twee, but I like it.
I like all of the NPCs with their little personalities and silly little hang-ups, yeah.
I like how there's like people from Lurelin like all over the world who are displaced because their villages got fucked. Like,
Yeah.
I like how you're fixing a fucking problem as the hero. Like, and it's not like it was in Breath of the Wild where like the consequences are never really shown to you with your actions, good or bad.
Like speaking of random NPCs in this game, I actually and quests, I really like the Tarrytown quest with like Matson going off to Gerudo Village. Like,
no.
I wasn't
Yeah.
expecting to
Yeah,
like
that
it,
was
but I
cute.
thought it was really touching. And
No.
like, I like Madison. And when I saw her in Gerudo Village, I like ran up to her. I was like, "How are you doing?"
Yeah, and then she's like, who are you again? Bye.
I cannot agree with Gerudo culture. It's fucked up.
Yeah, it is like
It's
really
fucked up.
stupid that like they fucking ship this child off to be without her parents for this like weird custom. But also, what are you gonna do? It's like the Gerudo are Zelda's version of Amazons, and real Amazons just like fucked men and then killed them instantly. So I guess you can't have that in a game for children. So we've got this weird version of them now instead.
Yeah, you stick them in jail if they come to, because they love their wife so much that they stick them in jail.
They really do.
It's fucked up. It's fucked up.
But it's the same thing as the Hateno Village quest, where the game's story, and I feel like this is a theme of like modern Zelda, is like a status quo warrior kind of game. Like, you know, we can't change the status quo. No, Gerudo Village is always going to be women only. We're always going to be serving the royal family, and even a fucking like election in some bumblefuck village, instead of anything actually happening, everybody's just going to agree, oh, we can combine your new ideas with my traditional values. You know what I mean? It's a lack of imagination.
I think a problem with a lot of the subquests in this game, it's the game almost admits it because it's got like quests, side adventures, and like one of them is clearly more interesting than the others. So they've categorized it because
Yeah.
some of them will just be like, "Can you get me 10 frogs
Yeah.
and I'll give you a rice ball?" And it's like, fuck off with that shit. I don't care about that.
All the mini games in this game are absolute fire, and it's a real problem because they give you like 100 rupees if you win them, so it's more worth it to just do something else.
Yeah, I've never done any of them because the rewards suck.
Yeah, I never had money problems once I realized that if you go to like the really difficult areas, and you kill like things that give you meat, if they drop I think it's gourmet meat.
Gourmet meat is really expensive.
you just make it into, you make 5 of them into something it sells for like 500 rubles.
I mean, that was always a trick in Breath of the Wild as well.
I would much rather make that money by doing fun mini games than grinding enemies, and it sucks.
Sometimes it just takes a long time.
And it sucks that the mini games don't give you very much. Even Snowling is also gone, and I loved Snowling. I would have been very happy if that guy was just in the same location.
I think the problem with a lot of the mini games in this, though, is like, although they're fun, a lot of them are too easy. Like, there's one where there's a Goron who's just like, "Hey, you want to hit my bell as hard as you can?" And it's one of those like test of strength, like mallet swing games. And it's just like, well, if I just attach 3 rockets to this thing, I win instantly, and stuff like that. So a lot of them are just like kind of simple and easy.
Yeah, you can make the best iteration of it and do that, and so the game can't really give you just 300 ass rupees for doing that.
Let me tell you about economy and farming and turning Tears of the Kingdom into various day life. I really want something where I can make a farm or create some sort of economy to create rupees or some sort of resource, like a farmable resource, passively. Like when you build your own house, which is super expensive, but there were like flower beds, and it's like, oh, maybe I can plant like apple seeds or something, rice here or something, so that I can go here every so often to pick up something that I'm looking for.
This game is already kind of grindy. I'm not sure if I agree that it should be made into more of a chores game.
You could make a funny side quest about building a farm that you can plant things in, and then you build the farm, and then you can send travelers out to sell them at villages, and they come back and say, "Hey, we made this much on this crop. Here you go. Here's some rupees."
It would be nice to just be able to get food.
Sounds like you want a farming simulator.
I feel like this is getting a little bit far away from what the game is supposed to be about, especially in terms of the fact that you're not supposed to be farming, you're supposed to be like foraging and finding things in nature.
Yeah, but when things are so fucking expensive...
Here's a question. How long has Link been working for the princess and has 0 money to his name?
Also doesn't have a home.
He does it for exposure, okay?
When you work with the princess, you get everything for free. Now the princess is gone. He doesn't have the princess's credit card anymore.
He doesn't have room and board.
I had several money-making ventures that I engaged in over the course of my time with this game. One was meat. There's the Dodons in the south, which you can feed like luminous ore, and they will shit out gems for you, which is nice.
You get a lot of gems from mineral deposits.
Yes, you
and
do.
Because there's lots of caves in this game, and by the way, caves are really fun to explore, in my opinion.
Caves are good.
Yes, they're really good, yeah.
You will easily get like 70 fucking sapphire just from exploring every cave you come across, so I never had money trouble.
I'm scared of selling those sorts of unique those items, though.
You have 70 of them.
No,
you can grind them out. You can make them infinitely.
There was a point when I was at the Gerudo village. She was like, "Hey, if you have this many diamonds, this many things," I was like, "I just had enough," and I was like, "I'm not selling anything anymore."
Yeah, that's the difficulty. Is there are some of those, and there are some armor sets that go like, "Do you have like 15 sapphires to upgrade me?" Like,
you know what the problem was for me was that. You know the ripened flint guy?
I love him. He's wonderful.
So I saw the ripened flint guy, and I saw the fact that you can just start fires without flint. And I was like, oh,
yes,
flint is just vendor trash now. So I sold all my flint, and then I tried to upgrade a necklace, and it was like, okay, have you got like 6,000 flint? And I was like, what? What? Why? Why would you do that? Why would you have an NPC who gives you money for flint when you need shitloads of flint? This is a balance complaint again. Oh, Nintendo! What?
It's very silly.
Nintendo could have changed done like 6 weeks worth of balance on the economy of this game, and it would have been like twice as good.
money ceased to become a problem for me, especially after I genocided all the Lionels as well, because their parts sell for ridiculous amounts of money. Like, Lionel guts, 500, easy peasy, lemon squeezy. And I'll get, like, almost guaranteed 1 or 2 of those per time I do it, so...
Yeah, I never had problems with money. I just think that there should be more enjoyable and varied ways to earn money.
And spend it, quite frankly. Like, I think there should be more reasons to spend money as well.
I don't know. I spent loads of money on upgrading, and I spent loads of money on the house, making the house. I made a really nice house.
Speaking of making money, if you have a full food inventory, then when you put the sign up for the guy, instead of giving you food, he gives you an additional 20 rupees.
Oh, that's good to know.
Hell yeah.
Can I start with dungeons?
Yeah, let's go this quickly because there's not much to say, realistically.
Okay, these dungeons fucking suck ass.
I would say 2 of them suck ass, and 2 of them are kind of middling, but a little on the easy side.
And one of them's not even a dungeon, and then the final dungeon is like worse than not even a dungeon.
Yeah.
The only one that I think is really, really bad is the Zora one.
Yeah.
Yep.
The water temple.
It's just 5 floating rooms with really basic puzzles in them that you can do in like 15 minutes. And also, the only challenging thing in the dungeon is the fact that Sidon doesn't fucking come when you need him to come and fucking do his shitty water thing.
That was the last one I did, so I was kind of pleased with the brevity of it all, honestly.
That makes sense.
Get it over with.
The main problem I had with that dungeon was I was like, I've solved the puzzle. Why won't this water wheel go on? And I did this for like 3 or 4 of the puzzles in this dungeon. And then I was like, am I supposed to go talk to Sidon before I can do anything in this dungeon? And yes, I hadn't activated Sidon so that I could finish like the puzzles. So what I tried putting a fan next to the water wheels. I tried putting a water hydrant next to the water wheels. I'm like, why is this not working?
I did that in the Rito dungeon. I saw the fucking turbine you had to spin up. I was like, oh, and I spawned a fan and tried to spin it up, and it didn't work.
Was that the first dungeons that you guys did? Was those ones?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, all right.
I think the wind temple, which I did last, and I did the water temple first, I think both of those are ass, and I think they're basically the same dungeon.
Yeah.
Like, they're both activate 5 fan-type objects that are just in different rooms. You've got a bit more getting around to do in the wind temple.
Yeah.
But it basically amounts to jumping off the side of the big boat and then, like, flying in through a window for most of it.
The wind temple there's slightly more to it, and there's like cannons on the side. There's not that much more to it.
The cannons can't really hit you very easily.
Every dungeon's solution is you use your partner's ability on the 4 things. So
Well, there's puzzles before that.
yeah, but there's puzzles before having to spin up the fans in the wind temple.
Yeah. So the problem with the dungeons is, number 1, it adds nothing to have to shepherd a stupid ass NPC around and get them to do things. I don't know why they added
sucks.
that. It sucks so
You're
bad.
meant to build a relationship with them.
I don't like any of the NPCs except Yunobo.
I like that you have that you actually have like the champions like walk around with you.
It sucks.
I don't like it. It's clutter. It's visual clutter. It's A-button clutter.
Yeah, talking about problems with the user interface, in this game,
Oh
you
my God,
spam
yeah.
A to pick up
Oh,
things.
yeah.
That is what you do. There's lots of things to pick up, and they're often not there forever. You need to spam A, and if you have a champion with you, it will activate the ability, and if you have the fucking precocious bird child with you, he will blow the valuable item off a ravine, and if you have the
He
fucking
sure
Yunobo
will.
with you, he will blow it up. It's so dumb.
The fact that like you have to also like walk up to them to
Yeah.
And they're running away from you because they try to avoid you.
Half the time they're
It's
running away and
ridiculous.
getting into a fight with an enemy that they can't kill because the only way they can kill it is to use their ability that you have to tell them to activate.
This needed to be on a different button. It needed to be like a select wheel or something. It should not have been on A.
yeah, it should have been a wheel. For sure. I like that they're out in the overworld. I like that they fight with you. I think that's
Yeah.
cool. But there should be, like, if you hold down A, you get a wheel to pick which one you want. It would have been way better.
Bird Boy, you only need to. If you're gliding, he'll do it. He'll do it.
Yeah, that's the best thing. The bird does that.
That's fine. Yeah, and same with Yunobo. When you're on a vehicle, those are totally fine. But when you're out in the overworld, like...
Hot Lady, you can be able to activate it if you're pulling your bow back. You can press A, and then she'll activate.
Yeah, that would be a good idea.
Yeah.
The rock one I don't mind because I only use that on I can use that because he's a big character, so it's easy to get over to him.
Oh, but sometimes you're in a cave and he's like, I'm not big enough to fit in this cave, and you want to mine that rock over there. I'm just gonna not be on screen now.
Yeah.
And it's like, where do I have to stand to get your fat ass out here to break this rock for me?
So I never used the sages outside of their dungeons. Ever.
They are very useful outside of their dungeons.
They're very useful, yeah.
Well, some of them are.
That's the problem. If they were useless, I could just turn them off, but they all have really good abilities except Sidon.
Yeah, I was gonna say Sidon's useless.
I used Precocious Bird Child once to get to the Light Dragon because I was having difficulty catching up to her.
I use him constantly.
Yeah, I had him out constantly. He can prolong all of your glides.
Constantly. And the Sage ability and the Sage Orbs to make his ability charge faster, mandatory. It is ridiculous how useful he is compared to everyone else.
He can, like, stun Lionels and, stagger them by hitting them 3 times in the head with a fucking arrow.
Yeah, and useless to me. Useless to me. All these things. Fucking useless to me. I do like them in principle for one thing, which is that I think that they are a response to the criticism about the dungeons in Breath of the Wild, that they didn't have unique dungeon items that, like, in classic Zelda, you get dungeon item,
It's
you use
not a
dungeon item
dungeon
to be...
item.
But it is, it's effectively the same thing
is.
because it's
But you don't really use them
No.
to solve a puzzle, though.
Fucking button that you push to solve.
it's an ability that you gain.
There's nothing interesting that you do with those abilities other than walk up to the specific item that you need for them and attack them.
Yeah.
If that's their response to criticism, it sucks.
All 4 of them are designed to make certain aspects of, like, your exploration life, like, easier.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right? Like, you no longer, if you have Yunobo, you don't need to use as many bombs to go caving. If you've got the Rito boy, like, you can glide more. And, like, Sidon, in theory, is useful, but in practice is not really, but...
Yeah, he's supposed to give you a free hit of damage or increase your attack.
But again, walking up to him to, like, preempt that is just not practical.
Yeah.
Maybe if you were charging your sword to do a spin, and then you can
Yeah,
press
maybe.
another button or something, I don't know.
It's funny because, like, in Breath of the Wild, all of these things were on, like, held buttons. So you had the Thunder Shock was on your spin attack. You could use Rivali's Gale by just holding the B button. What were the other ones? Mipha's Grace just activated when you died. It was like a free fairy. And then the Goron one was, like, when you blocked.
Which was fine.
Yeah, you didn't use any extra buttons for it, and it was, while they didn't feel like they were very useful, they didn't get in the way. Whereas these guys are useful, but a lot of the time they're in the way. Either they're standing in a place so I can't see what I'm doing and I get hit by an enemy, or I can't see the thing I'm trying to jump onto, or, like, they're there and I press A and then they send me flying or whatever it is. Like, they just annoy me more than anything. It's annoying how useful they are because I want to turn them off, but I need them for things.
After a while, I did just turn them off for peace of mind.
Yeah, I turned them off from the start, so...
Oh, the worst one as well. The worst one. So, Mitch, you won't have seen this yet, but
I know there's a golem. I know there's a big golem, right?
yeah, so there's a golem. If you activate the golem by accident, you climb up on its back, and then you have a weird button combination to press to get off it.
Pain to get off.
So rather than B being the get off button for everything else, I think you've got to press X then B for the golem. Like, it's really annoying.
The golem is, like, the most, like, depressing thing about this game because when I unlocked it, I was like,
Holy
oh shit,
I get a
I get to control a mech. And then, like, I attack once with it. You fuse a spiky ball to it, and I attack a silver moblin, and it does a pixel of damage. I'm like, this is worthless. I'm getting out.
It's useless. It's
Yeah, it
absolutely
sucks.
worthless.
Not only that, when the moblin attacks you, it does just as much damage as if you'd not been riding
You
it.
don't get any defense from riding the golem, and you're
Oh
a
my
bigger
God.
target. It fucking sucks.
You're a bigger target and you're slower. It's so terrible.
It's so
you
sad.
can make robots better than that. Like, I've seen people make robots better than that.
You can make a Metal Gear.
You can fuse anything you want to its hands and its back. It's so cool in theory, but
And
it's
yet it's
just
so
not
worthless.
fun to use.
It's one of the jankiest things I've seen in a Zelda game that's shipped.
I tend to fuse an ice and a shock like emitter to each of its hands, which is fine normally, but sometimes it will just walk up to me and zap me with the electricity. And my weapons go flying, and I'm like, what electric weapon is there around here that's hit me? Oh, it's my own fucking teammate. Great.
So on the design of the dungeons themselves, like I'm a Divine Beasts defender, because for all they got wrong, what I think the Divine Beasts got right is that, okay, each dungeon is going to have like a central mechanic. In the Divine Beasts, you could
like that,
tip
yeah.
them and change the water and move the segments of their bodies or whatever. And that was really fun. And these don't really have that. Like, there are some larger scale puzzles to do with like beams of light in the lightning temple and mine carts in the in the depths.
Those are the two best temples for sure.
And those are the two best temples, and that's why, because they feel less like just a disconnected bunch of rooms with simple puzzles in them.
Yeah.
The problem I had with mostly the Goron temple is, though, like, I got to a point where I was high enough up where I was like, well, I could ride these minecarts, or I could just, like, fly and then climb around everything at this point, because it'll be easier.
Hey, if you want to cheese it, that's
bike.
your freedom,
bike.
and I respect you for doing it, but I had more fun doing it normally.
I like riding minecarts.
Yeah.
One plus I'll give to the Divine Beasts over the temples is the Divine Beasts you could see, like, in the overall. Seeing the salamander climbing Mount Doom, that was really
that was
cool.
Very
amazing.
cool.
Yeah.
It was also really cool getting in the camel, and then, because I thought it was just going to stop, but no, it just keeps walking around while you're in it.
Yes.
Super cool.
Yeah.
I like the structure that they've got, which they do in Breath of the Wild as well, which is there is the lead up to the dungeon, which is a quest of itself.
Yeah.
Like, and you have a thing to do to get into the dungeon.
Yeah.
And I think I like most of them in Tears of the Kingdom. Like, I like the anti-grav ascent towards
That
the
one's
water
good.
dungeon, even if I don't like the water dungeon itself.
The going back and forth across Zora's domain was really tedious, in my opinion.
Yeah, that was annoying.
But the anti-grav lead up to the Zora dungeon is more fun than the dungeon itself.
Yeah.
Yes.
Also, the bouncing on all of the fucking ships lead up to the
That was good too,
Rito
yeah.
dungeon
Yeah,
is
excellent
more
moment.
fun than the dungeon itself.
True, yeah.
I knew the gimmick that they were going for before I got there, which is you're going to break cloud cover at some point. It's going to be sunny and pleasant,
Yeah.
and you're going to see this fucking thing. And that entire thing was ruined for me by the fact that I did it without Precocious Birdchild. And if you get up there without Precocious Birdchild, the teleport
Doesn't work.
node doesn't activate. It doesn't work. So I did that for nothing.
That happened to my roommate with the Zora dungeon.
I did it for nothing, and it really frustrated me. It was the only time I was really frustrated by a design decision in the game.
Yeah.
Because it was like, I've done this non-linearly, I've done it without the tool that you thought I would do it with, but it was obviously still possible. Why are you punishing me for this?
I think this is the main problem with the reliance on these champions, or whatever they're called in the sages, is like the game so wants you to interact with them, and sometimes you just don't want to, and you want to do things at your own pace, and you don't want to have to constantly talk to like these annoying characters.
I didn't know I needed to do it. I was just doing it.
The game really wants you to like them, but in my opinion, the closer you get to the main story of this game, the fucking worse the like characterization gets. Like, a lot of the weird NPCs and little side quests I really loved.
Yeah.
And the main story is just all the characters are so flat and boring.
Yeah.
The only other thing I'm going to say about the sages is Yunobo. There is one thing I really like about Yunobo, which is the lead up to the dungeon, which is his little like mini boss fight.
It's
like,
fun.
clearly not himself is my favorite like subtitle of a boss I've seen in a long time.
I like Yunobo.
I really
like
like
how
that.
stupid and irritating he is. There's someone who found all of the champions in this game, except maybe Riju, stupid and irritating. I went to Yunobo and I was like, finally, they get it. He is stupid and irritating.
He is.
He's stupid and irritating, affectionate.
Yeah.
The only other thing about Yunobo is that I despise the Fire Temple boss fight for one specific reason, which is the boss like surrounds you with those like marble pillars that you have to break with Yunobo,
Oh, yeah.
and then Yunobo can't get in. He can't get in. I can't break them. What do you want me to do?
If you think about dungeon items, really that's the only purpose they serve is to beat the boss.
For the boss.
Yeah, that's what they are.
I don't think you need the bird child at all for it. I don't remember using him in the boss fight.
You don't need any of them because if you don't do the bosses, the game makes you fight them before the final dungeon. And let me tell you,
Yeah.
some of those bosses are really tedious without those abilities.
I think the bosses are quite good in this game.
Yeah, the bosses are a lot better than they were in Breath of the Wild. They're still a bit on the simple and easy side, but they're all like memorable designs, I thought.
I like how they've integrated the 4 key powers into the new enemies, but also all of the older ones as well. I think that's very cool.
Yeah.
The only one I wasn't a huge fan of was the Wind's Temple boss. I forget what he's called.
Yeah.
He's so like when he shows up, I'm like, oh, he's so cool. And then I shot him once, and it did like a quarter of his health. I was like, oh,
I don't mind
never
that.
mind.
I don't mind an easy boss to kill because
Yeah.
Zelda bosses.
Zelda bosses are all glorified cutscenes. It's like but normally it's like a little reward for beating a difficult dungeon, so it does feel a bit reductive.
Your
in
reward
this.
is the spectacle and the music, and the spectacle and the music are good for every single part of the game.
The music in this game is great, and also
That's fair, yeah.
not only have they got loads of these like unique enemy and boss themes, which are all good, but they're all like adaptive as well, and
Yeah.
even like the shrine
yeah.
theme like subtly changes as you solve different parts of the shrine. Like you've got the gliding music that changes as you go into the depths. Like the music in this game absolutely fucking rips. It's great.
I thought it would be difficult to beat Breath of the Wild soundtrack, but they've included all of it to start with, so who cares? And B,
But they've also got so many new like contextual bits of music that play.
yeah, it's great. I like it a lot.
I think they beefed up the soundtrack as well, because a lot of people were like, oh, there's no music in Breath of the Wild.
Shit taste. Fuck off.
Yeah, music plays more, but I agree. I prefer the restraint of like seeing like a nice area and just having like a subtle music cue play
Yeah.
instead of like a big bombastic like fucking Skyrim theme.
Yeah, I agree.
They know when to use it, I think, is the key, which I think is great.
Yeah, and when it is used, it's effective.
The Wind Temple boss music has like the Dragon Roost Island
Yeah,
theme
it's
and all the other
great,
stuff
isn't
going
it?
on. Like it's excellent. Like the boss itself is fucking garbage, but the spectacle is good and the music is good. So I probably don't care that much.
The last temple is not a temple. You construct the golem before you can ride it.
Yes.
I liked it a lot.
I like the idea. Yeah.
This is supposed to be the last like thing you do, and when you have done the first 4 main dungeons, you go to Hyrule Castle, have a bit of a fight there, and then you come back and they're like, oh, hey, someone's researching this extra thing. And the ring ruins, which you can't normally activate or do anything with in Kakariko, you're then sent on a quest to like find out more about some Zonai ruins that are in the jungle. I had already been there and done all of that. So like you still get the quest at the end, and nobody like most of the quests, if you've already done them, someone stops you and is like, oh, you already did this? Okay. And it just ticks it off your quest sheet. But this one doesn't. So I went and did this whole quest line after having already done the temple.
Yeah.
And then like what it does is it clears up a load of storm clouds around some sky islands that are supposedly hard to get to. You can easily land on them. It's hard to see where you're going, but if you've got the shrine radar, you can figure out where you're going.
Yeah, that's what I did.
And then that unlocks a bit in the depths where there is a little construction factory for the golem, which I had also already found and just been like, I don't know how to do this.
Yeah, I found it and didn't know what the fuck was going on.
Yeah, me too.
I was very confused.
Yeah, because you need the key to activate it, which you get from this other quest. And then you go to 4 different rooms, which all have their own little puzzle, kind of like a shrine, and you get one of the limbs for the golem in each one, and then you put them all together, and then you can ride the most underwhelming thing that ever happened in Zelda.
It's really fun that you turn the pieces of the golem into like vehicles, basically. Like at one point, like you attach wheels to it and like ride it around.
Yeah.
Like it was cool.
The execution is a little bit odd in some places. Like I never really understood how those fucking wheel doors worked.
Oh yeah.
Yes.
Of all of the dungeons in the game, I think this is probably like the most interesting concept.
I agree.
There's a puzzle. There's a puzzle there.
Yeah, it's like it's a proper puzzle. It's kind of a meaty puzzle, and it builds on, and it's like the final boss of the building mechanics of the game. So in that regard, I liked it.
Yeah, it's good. There's one quick thing I want to mention about dungeons that is really weird to me that I don't like is that in shrines you can't climb, you can't use the people, and you can't build shit. And in the dungeons you can.
Yeah, which makes sense.
I don't think it does. I feel like in the dungeons they should have those same restrictions.
You need to have controlled environments, sterile environments, like a test chamber from Portal.
You do, but if they suddenly, like, because it's continuous with the overworld, if you got there and suddenly it, like, arbitrarily slapped away half of your abilities, you'd be pissed. I agree it would make the game experience better.
I wouldn't.
But I can see why they didn't do it. It's because they want to give people that freedom, and I can't blame them for that.
I think just stick it behind a loading screen, like warp you somewhere, you step through a portal and you end up in the dungeon and it's got restrictions. I wouldn't mind that at all, because I agree it would have been, like Moogle says, I think maybe I cheated myself out of solving some of the puzzles by bypassing them. And that wasn't necessarily because I wanted to bypass the puzzle because I was frustrated or anything. It was just that, like, maybe I missed the puzzle because I was like, because it was open-ended, I was like, I don't know where to go, but I know I can get to that room. I'm just going to go there instead.
That's just a weird hang-up. I don't know. It was like, oh, I wanted to solve it the way they intended it. You solved it. Don't worry about it.
It feels like you missed out on content.
The Addison things is a really good example. So I learned from someone else, so I never did this myself, it never occurred to me. You can trivialize every single one of them with the floating platform, because it doesn't move. You can just have the sign lean against the floating platform, and it never fucking falls. And I'm like, yeah, okay, that makes sense.
Any shrine that has a like one of those targets that you're supposed to like hit a ball against, you can just shoot a bomb arrow at and it activates it.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah.
There's almost too much freedom in the game, and once you get your head around some of the cheeses, like, you are eliminating maybe 20% of the engagement of the game. Because, like, if I no longer have to think about traversal at all because I've got a hover bike, I'm never going to think about it again. Like, and traversal is one of the interesting parts of the game sometimes.
Dominant strategies are a problem that the game has.
Yeah.
You really have to force yourself not to pick them up.
I agree with you.
It would be fine if they weren't as easy to find. My first thought when I initially saw the fan and the steering stick was, what can I make with this? Like, I can get 2 fans and a steering stick, and that should be stable enough. And I made what I think people call the Green Goblin Flyer, which is like the horizontal version of it. And it's really fucking easy. It tips over quite easy, but it's quite easy to make. And then, like, it's very, very easy to iterate on that process to, like, the vertical solution, which is the hover bike. And I'm looking at it, I go, I never need to build anything again. Like, this is the last thing I'll ever need to build. Because there's nothing that's as efficient or as good as that hover bike.
The thing is, I think some of this stuff is an insoluble design problem, because if you want to stop these dominant strategies, you have to put limitations on the building and on the other systems in the game that are ultimately gonna hurt how expressive and fun it is.
Yeah, I think I ultimately prefer the state that the game is in.
Yeah,
I do think you do lose some things by making the game so open, but at the same time, like, there's so many possibilities and it creates so much fun, like, discussion.
Yeah, when you find one of those, like, crazy things by yourself, or when you come up with, like, a weird and unconventional solution to a problem, it's like, oh, yeah, I can just do this.
Yeah.
You have that thought of, oh, wait a second, I can just do this.
I think it's because they're so universal that it's a problem. Like, if you had a one of those clever solutions to a problem that works some of the time, it's better than what they have right now, which is, there are some solutions that just work for everything, and there's no... Once you understand them, there isn't really a reason to do it any other way.
Ultimately, it's another balance problem. I have to say, I wasn't affected by it, because if I went into a place and the game was like, solve this puzzle, I I never started looking for a way to cheese it. I was just like, I'm going to solve it the way the game wants me to.
I think the problem is that it was less that I was looking for cheeses as so much as I already have this thing available that I know solves almost every problem that I have. Like, shall I try and apply this solution to this problem and see if it's one of the, like, 95% of cases that it solves? Oh, look, it solved it.
Story time?
Yeah, sure, story time. Story sucks. Next.
Yep.
One thing I hated was that the four temples, there's a cutscene where you meet the prior sage. It's the same cutscene.
It's the same fucking cutscene.
Oh yeah.
It's the only mandatory cutscene in the game, and it's the same thing each time.
Demon King, Secret Stone.
It's the only cutscene that comes up every time that, like, isn't just a random thing in the overworld that you can, like, go to if you want to. Like, that was the game's opportunity to sell me on the story, and they responded by absolutely wasting my time. And it just shows how utterly fucking interchangeable and boring all of the characters and situations are.
I like the memories, but I don't understand why those 4 cutscenes at the end of each of those dungeons, why they couldn't be like 4 pieces of the story rather than telling
that
the
would be
same
better.
story 4 times.
Yeah, well, I think one of the things is we never learn why the original sages became the original sages. Like, they're already working with Rauru. So what would have been nicer is if we got a cutscene where they were like, Rauru came and recruited me because I was the best archer in the kingdom or something like that.
Maybe get me some, like, character beats or some dialogue or
Yeah.
something that... No? Okay.
The Ancient Sages are non-characters. I do appreciate how each and every one of them says the word come when you first meet them in, like, the little, like, gold flashbacky thing, though. Each of them says the word come.
Compared to the champions, but I guess Link had a prior relationship with the champions.
Yeah, it's slightly different.
The thing about the story in this game is, you know, Breath of the Wild story is not very good, but it did get a few things right. And one of the things it got right was the story functions more like a Zelda mood board than it does a linear narrative. Instead of anything really happening, you just, like, hang out with all of these characters and get a feel of them. And because of that, you can do it in any order. Whereas in this game, it is basically 5 minutes of trying to rattle off every Zelda cliche under the sun.
Yeah.
With very boring, like, just really visually unappearing, like, drably lit mocap cutscenes of every single stereotypical Zelda story beat you could imagine, done with just absolutely no imagination. And to make things worse, you even though it's a completely, like, straight to the end story, you can fucking experience it in any order.
Yeah.
In which case, either it doesn't make sense or it's redundant because you just hear about characters discussing things that have happened, and then seeing that thing happen gives you no information whatsoever.
Breath of the Wild's story beats were the story of the world more than they were of, like, a story of characters doing things. Like, how did the world get into the state it's in right now? Like, and you put it together.
I think Breath of the Wild did some kind of interesting things with Zelda. Like, Zelda is actually kind of a complicated character in that game.
Yes.
Yeah, she has like an actual arc in that game.
She doesn't really want to do all this shit. She's feeling all of these, like, expectations from, like, her father and people like that she can't really fulfill. By the way, even though Zelda is ostensibly the main character of this, she doesn't have any arcs or any
No, she
appreciable, like, interests or anything like that. She's just there to be part of a Zelda cliche.
Everything that happens with Zelda's story in, like, the flashback memories when you find the tears, like, she may as well not have been there, really. Like,
Yeah.
the whole story is supposed to revolve around the fact that she's gone back into the past to affect the future, and the only thing she really does is right at the end where she, like, fixes the Master Sword, and the rest of it, like, it didn't really matter that she was there. Obviously we get to see the story through her eyes, but I think that worked well in Breath of the Wild. I don't think it works well in Tears of the Kingdom. I think I'd be more interested to see it told in a more linear fashion and like learn more about the Gerudos and Ganondorf and why they're attacking the kingdom.
Like, have some character stuff. Like, what really frustrates me is I went and found all the stone tablets.
Ah, yes.
And the stone tablets actually have some kind of interesting stuff on them. There's like stories about like Rauru and Mineru like fucking dancing in court, and there's stories about like how he would like sneak off and go hunting when he was like needed, and there's stories about like Zelda inadvertently introducing contemporary fashions to ancient Hyrule, and it's like, oh great,
Nice.
This would have all been like funny and gotten me and interesting and gotten me invested in the story if I'd seen it happen.
If those had been the cutscenes.
Instead of a load of fucking trite cliches that I've already seen in other Zelda games. Rauru. The game does this thing where it's like, and Rauru assembled a council of sages. And at no point does the game care who a sage is,
Who and why.
or what they do, or why it's significant that they're sages. All it is doing is having sages because there were sages in Ocarina of Time. That's it.
I think the real problem that I have with it conceptually is that this game took 6 years to make. They had time and money and resources to do these things. Like, they could easily have put more of that into the game, and it wouldn't have mattered a fucking shit for the schedule of the game's release at the end of the day. They made a conscious decision at some point that there were things that they were just going to leave out. And I think that's probably the biggest issue that I have with it.
I think it kind of suffers as well from like, oh, we did this in Breath of the Wild, so we have to do it here in Tears of the Kingdom. Like the geoglyphs are just the like memories that you had to find in Breath of the Wild. But I think that finding the memories was more interesting as well, because like you would just be exploring and you'd be like, wait, I recognize that.
I've seen this.
How do I get over there? Where do I look at this from? Like, you just see like a mesa in the distance and be like, I recognize that gay blowjob. Yeah, it's not as fun in this finding the memories. I kind of did it because it was something you had to do, and they're all boring. And I don't get why Rauru was the king, because he was an idiot.
Yeah, he was an idiot.
I'm not going to say that they're all boring. Like that fucking mocap on Ganondorf laughing. Triple A fantastic. Triple A fantastic.
That shit was hilarious.
The mocap in this game absolutely sucks. It is so obvious, and everyone looks so terrible.
Nah, mate, they just did really good casting and found someone that could detach their jaw, okay?
Getting the Master Sword was like a highlight for me.
Yes, I agree.
It was fun, yeah. I liked the stuff you had to do in the lead up to it. But it wasn't really fun because of the story element.
Was there a quest for that? Because I just kind of found it.
No, there is a quest. I mean, if you get all the memories, effectively, you find out what happened, and like the putting together that little story of exactly how it happened, depending on what order you do it in, is like, okay, well, this is what's happened. Well, where's the Master Sword gonna? Oh, okay, I understand now. That's where it is.
But it's kind of obvious, like, not to give away anything, but the fucking music that plays when you go there in a light dragon is come on now. Like,
wait, so does the light dragon show up before?
She's there.
Yeah,
she's
straight
there
away,
the
the
whole
whole
time.
You can see her from the first time you're on the first island. Because like one of the very first things I did was I got on a glider and I was like, I'm gonna land on that dragon. And cleverly, they put the dragon far enough away from the tutorial island that your wing glider will run out. But like I was almost at the Master Sword, like as the first thing I did.
if you go to the Korok village and do that quest, then the Deku Tree will indicate where the light dragon is on your map.
Yes.
And also, it causes her to fly lower, because by default, she flies like at 2,000 meters or whatever it is. You normally can't get to her very easily at all. She flies like, there's one place, I think, where she flies a little bit lower, where you can theoretically get to her, but generally you don't. So I didn't realize that there was a light dragon for quite a long time of the game. I just, I saw it from a distance and I went, oh, it's like Jinral, Nadra, or Farosh or whatever it is. It's just one of the dragons. I didn't like process that there was another dragon there effectively. It took me quite a while and I went, oh, they've added another dragon to the game, and then you do the stuff and you realize what's going on. But doing the Deku Tree thing, which I didn't do for a very long time, will make her fly a lot lower so you can realistically get to her, even if you've not done the quest. But if you do all of the memories, she has like a storyline, like mandatory, I will fly low so that you can do this.
The first time I saw her was after I did the final memory, and the last memory I did was the one where they talk about eating the what's it called, the jewel thing.
The sacred stone, secret stone.
And so it was a big like oh shit moment for me because like they do that, and then I see the dragon, which clearly has like her hair. I was like, oh shit, that's Zelda.
Yeah, like that's a good moment. Like the way that you're kind of supposed to do it, like by the game's rules, is you go to the Forgotten Temple or whatever it is, and there's a map that tells you the order of how to do the tiers in order to get the storyline. Yeah, there's an order for them.
Oh, I found that after I had found all of the tiers.
Me too.
Exactly. In the back of the Forgotten Temple, there's like wall frescoes that give you the exact order to go and do them in, so that you can get the story in the right order.
It's ridiculous though, because to get there you have to do a load of other stuff.
But there's a quest that takes you there though. After you do the first glyph, they're like, meet me here.
It's Impa who gives you like the first glyph and tells you this is what these glyphs are. Like maybe you should go find them or something. And then she decamps to the Forgotten Temple, and you're supposed to follow her.
No, I just went and found them.
I didn't care.
Which I didn't do because I remember the Forgotten Temple in Breath of the Wild, and I went. There's like 100 like not guardians in there. What the fuck is it going to be this time? I'm not going anywhere near that.
There's a little quest there as well where you like the goddess statue has fallen over. If you get it to go upright, which is really annoying because I kept finding goddess statues and being like, please give me a heart container, and they'd be like, my mum has fallen over. Go help her. I'd be like, fuck you, I gotta wait for a dragon to spawn now. But like you get her right ways up and she's like, here, have a shit sword. Bye.
No, I didn't do that. What was it?
She gives you the Skyward Sword.
I like a lot of the like environmental stuff, like just finding like a random thing which doesn't look like it's important, but it actually is. Like that island that's north of the Kokiri Forest, the Lost Woods or whatever. Like that's got a really nice set of like environmental puzzles to do with like dragons and like all of the sage abilities that you've got. And your reward is like a nice sword, like it's actually a good one. There's just a lot of that in the game. Like I really like those exploration moments that the game gives you. Like it's still really good at doing that.
Yeah.
Like it's still appallingly good at doing that, which I really enjoy.
It lets you find these things on its own, and it's also happy to. I think one of my favorite things about the game is that it's happy to like let that speak for itself.
Yes.
Like you find like the ruins of an old village, and there's like all this shit in it, like, and there's like wells and the whole thing is flooded, and it doesn't like play a dramatic music cue, and there's no like companion character who pipes up and they're like, there used to be a village here, I remember it well. It just fucking like speaks for itself.
I would have liked to see like some skeletons or like a diary or something to tell me what the village was about like before or something.
Whoa, did I just reverse time? Sorry. Sorry. That's not fair of me. That's not fair. Also, I think it's near Satori Mountain. There's like a little pond in this game, and it's like one of the most fucking serene places I think I've ever seen in a video game. I went there at like the evening and the sun is streaming in, and there's like birds chirping, and there's fucking fish flopping about, and there's insects that I run around and catch, and it's just a nice place to be. And I think that's probably why I spent so long playing this game. Like, despite all of my criticisms of it, it is just like a really nice place to be.
Yeah,
it's one of those worlds where you wouldn't mind spending time in there because it's such pristine like niceness.
You can tell whoever made this really loves nature and wanted to communicate that.
It was Miyamoto's influence once again, because like you remember they had him play like the original Breath of the Wild, and he was like, yeah, make loads of trees to climb and all sorts of other fucking nonsense, like loads of bugs to catch.
We gave Mr. Miyamoto the game and he spent half an hour climbing trees.
He sure did. And that's how they learned to put stuff on trees, which is good, because that's a good thing to do.
I don't trust jack shit that Miyamoto says after I read that Pikmin interview recently. Let me segue this.
Yeah, he's like, oh, hey, actually, we were just lying to you for marketing.
Yeah, Nintendo comes up with these apocryphal stories, and it turns out Miyamoto's been kicked upstairs for like 20 years and he doesn't do anything anymore.
Love him. Love him.
The line with Pikmin was always Miyamoto saw ants working in his garden to like carry a larger dead bug back to their nest, and he was like, I bet I could make a game out of that. You read this recent Pikmin interview, and it's like, oh yeah, Miyamoto had nothing to do with Pikmin until it was practically already a fully made game. And
Love
then
it.
he was like, hey, why don't you make it so that we play for score? And no, don't play for score. You're only getting 20% of the Pikmin experience if you play for score. Let's play to get all the shit parts instead. And I bet it's the same thing with Zelda, where he was like, oh yeah, I made Zelda because I liked catching bugs in like the woods. Nah, he's...
But I mean, if you've watched like the Jeremy Parish like NES
Yes.
videos, you already know that Zelda has like this multitude of different influences from different games that
Tower
that
of
came out at the time, and
Druaga.
Nintendo was obviously trying to come up with a competitor. But you know, it reads better if they come up with a cute story for it.
The general feeling I had coming out of Breath of the Wild was this isn't a perfect game, but it's also probably the game I would most like to erase all of my memories of and play again.
Yeah.
I think probably the same goes for this game. Like, I think this game doubled down on what it did wrong after Breath of the Wild.
Yes, it doubled down on what
Yeah.
it did right about all of the emergent
Yeah.
systems and like
Yeah.
physics and interesting ideas. But everything that was kind of annoying in Breath of the Wild, like grinding and menus and story, is worse in this
worse.
game.
There's very little in this game that I look at Breath of the Wild and I'm like, oh, they fixed that problem from Breath of the Wild.
Yeah, they didn't fix jack shit. You know what they tried to fix?
They fixed weapons.
Yeah,
They fixed
weapons have been
weapon
fixed.
breaking.
Yeah, that's really the only one that I can think of.
One of the things I was begging for with Breath of the Wild was I remember saying when we did a podcast about it at the time, I was like, if they had just made me a potion where I could like drink it and then I could climb in the rain or something like that. So they added that to this
you
game.
sad fool.
They added my monkey's paw.
But it doesn't work.
So
You just
if
slip
you have
less.
level 3 slip resistance, because you've got all of the pieces of the armor that you go on a 12 side quest chain
Yep.
quest to do, which is a very fun quest chain. It's very good.
The journey's good.
You get this armor and you're like, oh great, I'm not slipping. And then you climb for 22 of Link's little hops, and then he slips, and you're like, what?
Yep.
I've got the slip-proof armor. Are you telling me I still
If you get it to level 2, you will get the set bonus that eliminates slipping completely.
good luck catching 60 fucking sticky lizards or whatever they're called. I'm not farming for 60 sticky lizards.
If only you could do my thing of various day life and have a little farm that you can breed frogs.
I want to farm the sticky
Look,
lizards.
what Monster Hunter style farming? Let's do Monster Hunter style farming.
Pisses
Maybe
me
Mitch
off.
is right. Maybe we could have a little farm.
But why are you climbing anymore?
Yeah, that's the real thing.
But why are you climbing anymore, though?
Why are you climbing?
No, you can always get out a spring or always put a rocket on your shield or always go into a cave and ascend.
I guess I don't do enough of that.
It is kind of fixed. Kind of. But the act of climbing itself is as annoying as it ever was.
They chose to fix it by creating a different issue, like, at the end of the day. And I'm not against that, necessarily, but it is a bit of a fucking cop-out that they didn't fix the problem. They just chose to create a different one.
The thing that annoys me most about this is they gave me the thing I wanted and they didn't make it easy to achieve at all. And I've already completed the game and now have like no use for that item.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, that is one. I mean,
Fuck
that was
you.
the problem with the end of like the DLC in Breath of the Wild and stuff. Is you got the really cool item after you'd beaten the entire game. It's
Yeah.
like,
It's
why
like,
did
what do I
you
do
give
with
me
this?
this? I agree. I'm in the camp of like, I really, really like this game and I enjoyed my time with it, but it is also really deeply flawed, and I can't understand. I can't understand how any like game reviewer would give a game with a recycled
score.
cutscene that plays 4 different times a perfect score. It's so ridiculous, but like I'm getting to that point now where I would rather have a flawed game that tried something really interesting than a game that just did everything kind of well.
Yeah.
And I do think that this game tries something really interesting, and you can't really get an experience like this in any other game, I don't think.
Yeah.
This is the most better than a sum of its parts game
Yeah.
that you can get,
Yeah.
I think.
Like, we've spent like 3 hours complaining, and
Yeah.
yet, like,
Yeah, no, yo.
we've all put in probably like insane amounts of time into this game, and like I think we all probably could pretty confidently say that we love this game.
Yeah.
But it's very easy to complain about because there's like a lot of like little.
We're nitpicking or maybe tick picking because there are some things that are a bit bigger than others, but everything else is amazing, incredible, and we wouldn't be able to talk about it for this long because we probably wouldn't play it for this long.
I nitpick it because I love
Yeah.
it.
Can I just say, Gloomhands, whoever designed Gloomhands, give them a promotion.
Hell yeah, that scared the shit out of me first time. I was like, what the fuck is that?
Yeah, they were terrifying.
I was wondering what they were going to do with like Breath of the Wild had Guardians and it would spot you
Yeah.
from 100 meters away and you'd be like, oh shit. I was like, how are they going to,
Recreate that.
how are they going to develop that idea?
Like Breath of the Wild, when the Guardian spots you and you get the bleep, 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 and then you get the music kick in and you're like,
Oh
fuck.
shit.
Well, if I don't make this parry, then I'm gonna fucking die.
What if there was a higher level of oh shit?
There's just like, what's that on the ground? Like, what the fuck is that? Oh no!
I love that there's no lead up to it whatsoever. It takes you completely off guard.
I'm not sure if they're in specific places.
They're in specific places.
Yeah.
I felt like they were just at specific like times, but like regardless of where I was.
But it feels very random. They're not like in important locations or anything.
I think they are actually. I think sometimes there are specific. So the first ones that you're likely to find are on your way to the Rito village, and I think everyone drops down into that cave and then gets like assaulted by
didn't.
them.
I didn't do that.
Oh,
No.
okay.
My first was by a rock near the Sky Temple on the northern central east point.
I found them on the Great Plateau because I went there quite early.
I found them at like various building locations, and I'm like, is this building in some way relevant? Like, is there supposed to be some meta story here that this is like locations relevant to Ganon's like life or anything?
Oh.
And some of them are like clearly in places where you're like, oh, I remember this from Breath of the Wild. I'll go see what's here, and then it's
Yes.
like, oh, I shouldn't have gone here.
Yeah, basically, it's trying to bait you into going back to a place.
There's just the way that they appear, and they're absolutely fucking terrifying. And the first time you fight them,
The music plays and the fucking sky clouds over red.
The sky effect is like
it's
adds
so
so,
good,
much.
so good. And you almost certainly die the first time that you encounter it because you're like, what the fuck is it?
Yeah.
Oh god, it's grabbing me. Oh god, I'm just dead.
The first time I ran away and barely survived.
And it's so fast too, you
Yeah.
can rarely run away from them.
You can't outrun it. Like, if you're on a horse, yeah, probably, but otherwise, good fucking luck. And then you eventually go, you know what? I've got 10 bombs in my inventory. Fuck you, and fuck all you stand for. What are you going to give me as loot? And then you kill it, and then it's like, oh,
Brown trouser
no.
time.
what have I done?
Yeah.
Oh no, I give up. Please leave me be. And then, of course, you have that, and it's the first time it happens, it's amazing, and then, like, time 4, 5 onwards, it's like, oh, it's you again, huh?
Yeah.
We're back here, huh?
Yeah, let me instantly evaporate this thing.
Yeah. Let me just activate slow-mo and shoot you with Gibdo bones.
I appreciate how atmospheric it is, like, the first couple of times it happens, and, like,
Yeah.
it's one of the reasons why this and Breath of the Wild, like you've said, if I could erase it from my brain and just play it fresh without any preconceptions, I would. I'd probably say Breath of the Wild is the one I'd do, though. Not this one.
Probably because it was the first one you played.
Maybe.
Yeah, some of the impact is just lessened because you know how the
'Cause you know what's
game
going
is
on,
designed
right? Yeah.
and what it does. Like the surprise of coming out of the fucking room in Breath of the Wild and seeing the whole spread of thing. You're never gonna get that again.
No.
I think this game knows it, and it's gone in like a more formalistic direction of like trying to build on the mechanics in Breath of the Wild instead of
Yeah.
giving you like a big surprise.
Lots of good firsts, very average minis.
If we're on errata, it's the same as in Breath of the Wild, but like, goddamn, this game is gorgeous. Again, talking
Yes.
about visuals, obviously it chugs on the Switch and like the assets aren't great, but this has one of the best looking lighting models of
It
any
really
game
does.
that I've seen. Like, this is the only game where I'll stop to watch a sunset and take a picture
Yeah.
of it, or I'll watch like the fog rolling along a valley, or like the cloud like rolling over a sky island. I don't know what the hell they did, but like the dynamic like lighting, time of day, and weather systems in this game just look great.
The skyboxes are some of the best in anything ever.
Mm.
Like the fucking.
I don't know, I think Sonic Adventure 2 kind of beats it.
Yeah, I think this is kind of a timeless looking game. Like, because it's gone for,
For
a semi-realistic art style, but like it's still cartoony. It's an excellent art style for Zelda, and it will always look nice, I think.
They'll re-release it in a couple generations and add bloom and all these texture filtering effects to it, and then you'll be eating those words.
I love how characters emote. Like, the way that characters emote, I think, is just, like, really nice. Like, don't get me wrong, there's not much for them to emote about, but they manage to get, like, a really shocked-looking face consistently. I will never get bored of Addison going, he's standing!
Oh, you know what, though?
Jesus Christ!
Coming back to, we mentioned it very early on, but all of the, like, times the game wastes your time, like, having to wait 5 seconds for Addison to allow you to talk to him to
Yeah.
finish his quest, and then another fade out, and then he gives you 3 items in separate dialogue boxes.
They make you wait so that it stands for like a certain amount of time.
Yes, it has to stand.
That waiting bit is fine, but like the number of like, oh, I'm finishing a shrine. Let me go up to the thing. It starts playing a cutscene. I can't skip it until we're 3 seconds in. I skip it. It fades to black. It unfades. Then a dialogue box comes up telling me a message that I've seen 50 times.
Yeah, I know.
Then it fades to black again. I'm like, oh, good, I'm leaving. And then it resumes playing the cutscene, and I have to skip it again.
The fact that they've got, like, dialogue between the 2 cutscenes is their choice, but some of it and not being able to skip things until, like, 3 seconds in and whatever, I think it is just the Switch fucking dying.
Yeah.
And I'm surprised it doesn't actually die throughout the entire game.
This game is a fucking technical marvel. Like,
It really is. It shouldn't work.
I am so impressed that you can just run around the overworld with 5 like companions
Oh,
with
yeah.
you at all times while fighting a bunch of enemies. Like,
And machines, and you can seamlessly walk into giant ass cave systems.
Yep.
You can seamlessly dive down into the fucking depths.
Depending on how fast you go in there, though, it kind of chugs a little bit.
It can show.
I had one time where the game froze for like a good 5 seconds when I was jumping into a chasm.
Yeah, it does occasionally. Like, the fact that it is stable, like, I imagine that's probably what they were doing for, like, the last year and a half of its development was, how do I make this not crash?
Yeah, they said they did a year of polish, and it shows.
It reboots the Switch on the loading times.
The Switch has 4 gigabytes of RAM.
It's
That is
crazy.
shared between the video and the system memory,
Oh, shit.
and something like 512 megs is reserved for the operating system.
Damn.
It's mad, and I get why now, like, the blood moons happen, like, it feels like constantly, and you understand why, because it's like, no, I'm refreshing this. Fuck you, I'm refreshing it. I don't care, I need to clear my memory.
Yeah.
Like, there's another couple of things that I like about the Blood Moon, which is that if you haven't done the Crisis at Hyrule Castle quest, like, Zelda will talk over that cutscene, and it's good, and then she disappears once you finished it. I like that as a touch.
And she's not in the cutscene at all anymore either.
Yes.
I didn't realize that because I always just skip it.
I played it in French, so she always said "La lune," and then I skipped the cutscene.
You're supposed to twig that it's not entirely right from that cutscene, and I like how unsettling it is, because she's talking about it like she's in awe of it, and it's like, okay, now I understand.
Big Blood Moon fan.
The Blood Moon, again, I think, like, the first time I got a Blood Moon in Breath of the Wild, I was, like, shitting myself.
Yes.
So I was like, what the fuck is going on? It got me the first time in Tears of the Kingdom as well, because, like, it was the first time it happened. I was like, oh, shit, what's going on? Oh, Blood Moon. Okay,
Oh,
we're
right,
good.
Blood Moon. Yeah.
The thing with having the sages out all the time with you, like having 5 extra characters on screen, every time I got a new sage, I'd be like, okay, is it going to have me swap one out? Because I don't think it's going to handle, like, having
Yeah, I
3
know,
extra
right?
people. And
You
each
can
time
just
I was
have
like,
them all out.
yeah,
It's so
I was so
cool.
surprised.
Yeah, me too.
The other thing is just with the reversal mechanic, every object in the game has to
Yeah.
keep some kind of memory of where it's been for the last 10 seconds. And it's checkpoints. It's like the little blobs you see along the way of it being in a place. It's like it's approximating where it was really. But like it does such a good job of just like, I can reverse that weapon that's just been thrown at me. I can reverse this rock that's over here. You know, you can make so many physics objects just fly around.
You see it, and you're like, wait, what? it's like a technology moment. It's so cool.
Yeah.
I did work it out. It's not that much memory if they're storing like positions and rotations with quaternions, which is what most 3D games do. It comes out to like 10 or 20 kilobytes per object for like a minute of rewind. But when you see it, you're like, how the fuck did they do that?
Oh, they do that, yeah.
Especially when it's literally everything. Like, if I launch my Worm's Airstrike into the middle of something and I press recall afterwards, the amount of fucking arrows on the screen is insane.
Yeah.
And it's capturing all of that. And I'm like, wow. Like, what the fuck?
Something really fun that the game keeps track of that I actually noticed like really recently is I've been going around doing all the Addison signposts, and if the sign is like leaning a little bit when you complete it, it actually retains that when he
It does, it's ever so
when he
slightly skewed as to
yeah.
exactly
Oh, I
how it
didn't
is
know
that
that.
you did it. Very
really
weird
cool.
and very, very
Oh,
funny.
That's funny.
I just want to say something good about a quest that I really like, which it's not even really a quest. So, like, it's very good environmental storytelling, I think. There's four Yiga clan hideouts that you can find, and there's one that you kind of almost have to get if you do one of the main storylines, because Robbie, like, sends you off to his tower and the Yiga have taken
Yes.
it over.
Yes.
What you may not realize if you go there for the first time is there is a map on the wall which shows the location of three or four other Yiga hideouts. I didn't see this the first time, so when I found another one of the hideouts, I was like, oh, there's more of these. I guess this is where I get all the armor pieces. They're not just scattered in random locations. And noticed both funny little pictures where people have like doodled Link as a demon with horns on the wall, but there's also just a map that shows you. So you can figure it out. It's like a stylized map of Hyrule. So you can kind of figure out where the locations are based on that map, but it's kind of difficult to be sure of where it is. And I think that's one of my favorite storylines in the game, and possibly in any game ever as like a side quest, because it's something you just kind of stumble across organically. No one like gives you a quest and says, Link, you need to go find the 3 Yiga hideouts so you can get their armor and then infiltrate their main hideout, and then after that they'll let you infiltrate their super main hideout. You just kind of get there along the way by like figuring it out yourself.
Yeah.
And there's not many games that kind of trust you to do that, I don't think, really. And it's just neat that you can put that together yourself and be like, oh, okay, so I need all of the Yiga armor to get into this location. I can figure out where the Yiga armor is from previous places I've been. And it just gives you enough information to figure it out yourself. It's really nice.
There's a lot of, I think, contextual NPC dialogue where, like, NPCs will just randomly mention, like, oh, something interesting might be over here.
Yeah.
Or there'll be, like, a visual thing. There'll be, like, a smoke plume from someone sitting at a campfire, or there'll be something glowing, or, you know, there's just tons and tons of, like, tiny little ways that the game just infinitesimally, like, points you towards interesting things and then lets you have the satisfaction of discovering it on your own.
The Misco treasures, like the
riddles.
If you go into a cave and there's not really much there, you know about it quite instantly. You're looking for a bubble gem, maybe there's some monsters to kill, whatever, who cares? If you go into a cave and you see that fucking bunting on the wall,
oh yeah,
every
that's to
fucking
show you
time,
his armor.
every time I see that, I go yes, because that's actually what I want from the game.
Yeah.
At the end is I want the armor sets and stuff. Like
Yeah.
those are the meaningful like pieces of treasure that you can find in these places. So like every time I see that, it's an immediate like relief moment and yeah, this is really cool. I like this.
Yeah, it's great that they signpost that.
Yeah, really good. Like the visual design is excellent.
While we're in the random thoughts section, I want to give a shout out to NPCs that I liked.
Yes, absolutely.
I liked the woman who wants to fuck a skeleton
Oh, God.
on the fucking Great Skeletons quest.
Oh yeah, of course. Yeah. Okay.
And she fucking like swoons over all of the skeletons after you heal them. The other character, random NPC that I like they haven't talked about was actually Pen.
Yeah,
Pen is
Pen's
excellent.
cool.
I like Pen.
Pen's good.
Do you mind if I say what happens at the end of the Lucky Clover Gazette quest.
Not a lot happens, really. He just, like, goes off to contemplate his life.
That's what I like, though, is that you get to the end of that quest and, you know, it's like a very formulaic thing of, like, he'll tell you there might be something interesting happening there, and then you solve it, and then he swoops in like, oh, thanks for finding this. This will be great for our write-up in the Lucky Clover. And then you get to the end, and you talk to Tracy, and she's like, oh, yeah, he just kind of, like, went off to do his own thing. And you go back and you talk to him, and he's just, like, really fucking depressed, because he's like, you did everything, and I didn't do anything. All I ever did was introduce the problem, and then you solved it. He's like, I'm going to take a mental health break. And then he just stands there staring into the distance for the rest of the game. And when I played
I'll be right back.
I was like, surely there's something else to this quest. But no, that's the end. He's just depressed. It's great.
I think he's going to be the DLC. I think we've not seen Cass either. Cass is not in this game.
Yeah.
Penn fulfills the role of Cass.
It's the same with Sidonis. Nintendo decided people were too thirsty for Cass, so they took him out. Nintendo decided people were too thirsty for Sidon, so they were like, no, he's in a relationship, actually. He's off limits.
But there's also a statue of you riding him.
He's in a relationship with a green Zora who's got like a long tail as her hat. Head,
Yeah.
who's clearly linked.
It's a stingray.
They also removed the Gerudo Vi clothes because they didn't want people dressing Link up as a girl.
Oh, yeah.
And then, but then along the side they added like the Naedra armor, so the Nehru dragon armor, which is there's basically just a dress with a back slit in it.
Yeah.
So you may as well have added girl clothes to the game again. Like it's interesting to see where they took what they removed from the game. Like. Because I went and looked for them. I'm like, I found most of the armor sets from the first game now. Like, where's the Gerudo Vi clothes? I haven't found them yet. Like, Are they in the bazaar? Are they in Gerudo's like town itself? No. And then I went and looked online. It's like, no, they're not there at all. Okay, fine.
It's fine in a gameplay sense because it was kind of annoying having to equip them every time you went into Gerudo Town. But it's just funny that after they brought back all the pointless DLC clothing, they didn't bring back those.
Yeah, it's weird. The other thing I was going to mention with Penn's quest is what you're supposed to take from Penn's quest is every quest is to do with Princess Zelda.
Yeah.
And everything to do with it is either, oh, she wasn't really there, or there was someone there, but it clearly isn't Princess Zelda.
Yeah.
Like, and you're supposed to, like, that's what you're supposed to twig from that quest.
This really fucking annoyed me because not just those quests, but also the main dungeon quests do that, where Zelda shows up and she's like causing problems. And like, if you find all the memories, Link should know where Zelda is.
Yeah, I did all the memories before any of that, and so just like, I know where she is.
It's such an obvious twist. As the quest was going on, I was desperately hoping, please don't say that Zelda has been replaced by a evil doppelganger. That would be the most boring way you could possibly resolve this mystery. Oh, yep. Okay.
I didn't mind it, but that's because I did the memories quite like mid-game-ish, and I think the real issue would have been had I done Fire Temple first.
I did Fire Temple first.
Fire Temple is the tremendously fucking obvious one, right? Where it's like, oh, Yunobo, take this thing. Oh, you're evil now, Yunobo? Clearly not yourself. What the fuck is going on there? With all the others, there's a little bit of like, is it, isn't it? Like, is that her? Like, is she disappearing? Like, what's going on? Like, and the fact that I went to Kakariko quite early, I think, as well, and was like, why can't I go up there? Princess Zelda has said you will not enter there. Like, you may not go near there. I'm like, okay, well, I'll cheese this then, shall I? No, you cannot cheese that problem. It does not allow you to cheese that problem.
Yeah, I tried.
That one really annoyed me because, like, I didn't.
That annoyed me too.
I thought, do I need to like
likewise.
go to the depths and ascend from under it? No. Is there a cave under it that I've got to ascend from? No. It's just it unlocks after the main quest line does, and that's kind of annoying.
I disliked how long it took me to get the solution to that problem, as in, like, how long it took me to unlock it, because it was one of the first things that I saw in the game.
Yeah.
And it's like, you can't go there.
Well, it's one of the main towns that are so nearby as well.
It feels so out of place for the entire game.
It was just one of those annoying, like, yeah, okay, well, I'm not going to be doing. This is just a story thing, huh? Because I spent like 30 to 40 minutes trying to like do something with it, and the game doesn't really tell you, well, you can't do anything with it. It just says, nah, you failed. Like, I spotted you getting onto this thing. Like, don't do it again. Like, okay, whatever. you don't like the end game, do you?
I like the idea of going through like a long, super difficult area full of difficult enemies. But it's just kind of a wet fart. It's like 3 rooms. One has a Lionel, one has Gloomhands, and then there's like a corridor with like some common enemies. And then before you go into the boss, you're telling me that you have another fight with like a shitload of common enemies that I've already killed 1,000 times. Like, come on.
Well, I think the issue is, so I only went there when I had all of the sages, right? What strikes me as interesting is, what if I went there without any of them?
You have to fight the bosses again.
You fight every boss.
Yeah, so do you have to fight, like, all of, like, Ganon's minions as well?
You have to fight all the minions and all the bosses without any of
Including the Rock'em Sock'em
abilities.
robot.
Including the Rock'em Sock'em robot, which is so frustrating.
That's a moderately interesting combat challenge, and, like, I kind of disappointed that I didn't get the opportunity to do it, but...
It's difficult, but it's not fun. It's just frustrating.
Yeah, like, it strikes me as, like, wow, that is a shit ton of fucking enemies.
And you do the Phantom Ganon fight that you do, like, that you would have done 10 minutes beforehand. So
okay.
the annoying thing about having, like, a load of Gloomhands in the lead up to this, this like, final area as well is you've just fought about 10 Phantom Ganons. Like, if you've sort of done the previous quest line before this, which probably you're doing, because you're probably like, oh, this is the end of the game now.
Yeah.
The final boss itself, one, I like that you don't reduce its health bar to a quarter of like its normal just by having the sages, which was a problem with Breath of the Wild.
Yeah.
The final boss in Breath of the Wild sucks if you've done all of the dungeons because it's not challenging at all because it's got like no health.
It just feels like you're denying content to yourself.
Yeah.
This one does feel challenging, and I always like it when they do a symmetrical sword fight in these games where like the boss has the same abilities as you do.
Including Flurry Rush. So Ganon can Flurry Rush in this.
I like how he can flurry rush your flurry rush, but he can't flurry rush a flurry rush after he's flurry rushed.
Yeah.
The thing I didn't like about the second phase is that like you have to flurry rush. Like the first phase.
No, you don't.
You don't?
No, you don't. You can parry. You can just attack him during his recovery. You can do all sorts.
Yeah.
You can use all sorts of items as well, and they'll work as well.
I tried to like attack him during like recoveries, and he'd always jump away.
No, it's possible. Like I did a number.
You just
of,
have to be
like,
good with the
Master Sword.
timing.
Yeah, it's just a timing thing.
Okay, maybe I'm just bad then.
I used
I liked
parry
the
a lot on
first
him as well.
phase.
Also, there's apparently something you can do, which is like he's got the projectiles, which like this is the only time you can do it in the game. So why would you do it otherwise? You can reflect them back. Like okay,
You can reflect Gleeok fireballs as well.
I didn't realize that.
Oh.
Interesting.
I don't think you can reflect Lionel fireballs, though. I think they just dissipate if you try and
If
reflect
you block
them.
or parry or try and hit them, yeah, it doesn't really do
You
much.
might be able to reflect like bullets also.
I just reversed it.
I just reverse them usually.
Yeah, I just reversed them. But I like the boss, the end game boss rush, if you like. Overall, I think it's okay.
Yeah, it's a perfectly cromulent final boss. You get the sword combat, and then you get the fucking cutscene boss that they close it out with, which is fine.
I wasn't
It
a big fan of
sucked,
the
that
cutscene
sucked.
boss.
I like it. I think it's very good.
It's
didn't like it.
fine. It gets back to like the theme and idea of the game. It's not really difficult or interesting, but it was the same in Breath of the Wild. It's like you do the difficult one-on-one sword fight, and then you close out the boss with a bit of spectacle.
I think this is better than the final thing in Breath of the Wild.
Yeah, it's much better than Breath of the Wilds.
I think I
I didn't
prefer the
mind
Breath
that.
of the Wild one.
I haven't played the final of this, but I don't mind running around Hyrule Field and shooting arrows.
They're both about the same, and they both hit the same beats overall.
Thematically, like it's a really nice like spectacle, like the very last thing that you do, because obviously you've got like the view that you've got, and then you've got what happens in the last phase as well, and like you can look up and go, oh shit. Like all of that stuff I think is good. I like it overall.
It was fine.
I actually like Ganondorf in this game. Like I think he's mustache twiddling again, which I
Yeah.
think is fine. I'm okay with him being like a complete fucking mustache twiddling villain. Like I think that's cool.
I really like how when you enter the second phase of the boss fight, his health bar just keeps going.
Oh god,
Yeah.
It's so
it's
good.
so
I
fucking
love that.
stupid.
I was really hoping it would like go off the screen and wrap back around.
Yeah. What it needed to do really was to do what it did, but then also increase on the left-hand side as well, so it filled up the
I
screen.
would have liked if it went off the side and then came back around to meet up,
Yeah,
or
screen
if it
wrap,
got
that's
to the
very
end
funny.
and then just started spreading out to the left. It's very like, it feels like a stupid fucking Undertale joke or something.
Yeah, it does. Yeah.
There's another one which I thought like ruins the mood completely, which is that when you finish the game, like you then have like it marks the quest complete in your quest tracker, like, and it's like, way to ruin the moment, dude, way to ruin the moment, and then you get like the very last one of those.
It kind of bothers me that there's no post game in these. Like, I understand post games are a lot of effort, but like,
Post game is collecting all the stuff you missed.
yeah, but if they introduce like, oh, you defeat the final boss and then you can wander around Hyrule and there's like a few different things and the NPCs have some new dialogue and like there's no longer like gloom all around Hyrule Castle, that would be sick, in my opinion. That would feel like a real reward.
Like all the gloom is gone. The gloom enemies are normal enemies.
It's dumb having to beat the game and then reload your old save with it not beaten to 100% it.
Yeah, and this is a big Zelda problem for me.
If there were no more Blood Moons that respawned enemies after you beat the final boss, I'd be happy.
Not technically possible, but it would be fun, wouldn't it?
Oh, so you can clean up the game.
You can clean...
The game would die. Like your Switch would like turn into a sun and fucking end itself.
But I agree, it would be sick.
It would be nice to clean up Hyrule completely, you know.
Whoever designs the characters in this game has a fetish for tall creatures with short little legs and like long torsos.
Yeah.
And long
And
necks
large ears.
and like big pointy ears. Because it's it's such a lack of originality, like to make the fucking Zoras and the Rito basically have the same body type, and then they add in another race, and it's the same body type again. It kind of ticks me off. Make something different.
I like how Rauru has a third eye that he only opens when he's really fucking angry as well. Like,
yeah, I like
it's
that.
very
That's
funny.
If he only opened it when he was really fucking stupid, then it would be open all the time.
You remember when Zelda was like, "You shouldn't trust this
You
Ganondorf
shouldn't
guy,"
trust this guy.
and he's like, "Well, I keep my friends close, but my enemies closer."
Oh,
And then
no,
in the
my
next
wife.
scene, Ganondorf instantly kills him and his wife. It's like if they played it for comedy, it would be better, honestly.
Did anyone play this in English? Because I played with the Japanese language. The English language dub is fuck.
I played in English.
I played it in English.
It defaults in English, I turned it off immediately.
French, it's so bad.
I played it in English all the way through. I don't have major complaints. Zelda is still a little bit irritating, like, and sometimes quite a lot, but
Well, I think Zelda's voice is fine.
It's
I think the
okay.
one I like the least is Sidon. His voice is not fitting for him at all.
yeah, Sidon is irritating.
Zelda's voice might be the single worst voice I've ever heard in a video game.
I agree.
That's not
no,
true.
Mipha was worse in Breath of the Wild.
Maybe it's an effect that she has on British people, but like the fucking
He's not even
weird,
British.
the
She's
weird
Canadian.
fake British accent and the constantly sounding like she's on the verge of tears. I just can't handle it. Please talk normal.
I didn't mind it.
I think it's the direction, because in Hyrule
Yeah.
Warriors Age of Calamity, the voices are the same actors, but they all sound better.
I agree with you. I think the actors are probably fine and they've just been given bad direction. A lot of the people who voice acted this game are like career voice actors who've been doing it for ages and ages and ages, and yet they sound like crap.
Isn't Ganondorf Matt Mercer in this?
It is, yeah.
Yeah, he doesn't sound great.
I don't know what he sounds like actually, but I assume he sucks.
Still can't get over Ganondorf's laugh. I think it's great.
I do
So-
like
so
the face
funny.
he makes. It is funny.
Yeah, it's a good
He
one.
has good faces. He guns really well.
He's reacting to it well.
When you see the like character art of him with like the stoic Chad stride,
Oh god.
that like he doesn't look like he would laugh in such a weird way, and then like the whiplash as you see his face contort is like,
Yeah.
damn.
It
I
really
cracked
does.
up laughing when I
It's
saw
so
that.
good.
That's where their
It
whole
almost
facial
ruins the
animation
scene.
budget went.
It's just he just distends his jaw. He just dislocates it. It's fine. Don't worry about it. It does that sometimes.
What do we want the next Zelda to be?
Not this. Not this.
Something different, yeah. I want them to keep the idea, like the core idea of open world exploration, and I actually want them to keep the shrines as well. I think they're really good.
I would like the dungeons to be better once again. Like, all of the complaints that I had with Breath of the Wild are still present in this game.
Yeah.
There isn't enough of Zelda in this.
Fix those complaints, and also for them to just like, what I liked about Breath of the Wild ultimately is that it was something surprising that I wasn't expecting.
Yeah.
And everything that I liked about this game was the same. It was just some weird thing that they'd added in that I wasn't expecting. And I would rather that than just ask for, like, please return this fan favorite thing.
Yeah.
Like, no. I just want something cool and well written.
There are structural things with Zelda that are missing from Breath of the Wild and this that I still think it's baby thrown out with bathwater. Like, there are things like the hook shot, which are kind of iconic to me for Zelda, which I'm like, why have you not got a hook shot in this game about traversal? Like, what the fuck is wrong with you?
I feel like a hookshot would not work in this game at all.
I disagree.
I don't care one way or the other. I would rather they did something else with it than just keep returning to the hookshot or returning to this or that thing.
But there's any number of different things. But there's like in terms of dungeons, like there is something that is very satisfying about I enter dungeon, I acquire thing inside dungeon that changes the way that I view that dungeon and in fact the rest of the game world. Like, can I have some more of that, please?
I want that.
I think
back
this
as
game
well.
does that good enough.
I don't care about dungeon items, but I care about contraptions. A lot of my favorite dungeons from the Zelda series hinge on the dungeons having like central mechanisms that change the layout of the place. I'm thinking about stuff like the water temple in Twilight Princess, or the or the fucking Gerudo, what is it? The desert temple in Majora's Mask that flips upside down.
Yeah.
Or the sliding puzzle box dungeon in Skyward Sword, which is one of the only good things about that game.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
Those kinds of dungeons I love, and even if they keep them simpler, and even if they don't have the key item structure anymore, I hope they keep to that idea.
There's a spatial awareness thing that I think is mostly lost with Breath of the Wild and with this. Like,
It's spatial reasoning and like being able to build a holistic picture of the space that you exist in.
the ice dungeon in Link Between Worlds, like, that's one of my favorites in that one. Like, the way that it turns from like an ice dungeon also kind of into a lava dungeon, but you drop floors on top of each other and then create the boss arena and then you drop into it. It's all really good. Like, those kinds of dungeons are really fun.
I think for the next Zelda game, they should take this map and add 2 more layers to it.
No, I want to go somewhere else.
We need a new map.
Outer space and then hell.
I did think for the DLC, I'm wondering, you see Master Koga like get like flung into the stratosphere, whether they will add like whether they'll add like fucking space or another higher level or something.
It's Super Zelda Galaxy time.
Yeah, do you think spherical planetoids would work for Zelda?
Oh god, no, fuck off.
For a game this complicated, that sounds like a nightmare.
I think they'll just add more to the sky. That's my gut feeling, is they add more to the sky.
For the DLC,
Because it's fairly empty there anyway right now. Like, you could add more in it.
The obvious thing is to add more to the sky. I was kind of disappointed there weren't caves in the depths. I wonder if they're going to
that's also
add
true.
those.
Like, the depths just felt a little bit too, like, one note for me
Samey.
in terms of that. They could add more to it.
I didn't like the awkwardness of equipping weapons from, say, going from your sword to your bow.
They really needed to redo the UI in this game from Breath of the Wild, because like they kept the same thing I imagine to keep it consistent and to make sure that like loads of casual players who don't play many video games will be like, oh, well, this is easy for me to understand because I played it before, whatever.
This game has the Super Mario Galaxy 2 thing where they weren't really intending to make a sequel and they just started building more and more and more on top of the original game.
Yeah.
And it's most obvious in the user interface because you can tell that all of the new things they haven't built a new user interface for it. They've just bodged more and more shit on top of the Breath of the Wild one, and it sucks.
It does what it has to, but like you could do it so much more conveniently.
I think maybe one of the worst things to highlight this is when you want to throw an object rather than shoot it with your bow. You have to hold the throw
Why
weapon
do I
button.
start
Select
throwing
the
my
weapon.
weapon
That is the
first?
stupidest shit.
I never want to throw my weapon. Just let me throw in items. stupid game.
And the sorting too. Oh my god.
Yeah, the sorting's bad. Scrolling through hundreds.
Not having favorites and only being able to sort by most used, and it's like the most used thing is not necessarily what I need right now. I need that one thing that I need occasionally.
Being able to sort it helps, but there's certain items where they're not in your most used, and you'll just need to fucking look for them every so often. And it'll
And
be
there are, like,
really
hundreds of
irritating.
items in this game.
They don't categorize them. They don't give you any way to like filter them, and yeah, it's bad.
The other annoying thing is I change armor sets very frequently, and I can't set like favorite armor sets. So I always have to like select
Yeah,
all
that'd be
3
useful,
pieces of
for
armor,
sure.
and it's not necessarily all in one set.
Or at least let me like put a whole set on at once. Like I obviously want the set bonus.
But I always wear
Stupid.
Korok mask.
That's a you problem.
It is.
Not killing 4 Lionels every 10 minutes is a you problem.
It really is. Hey, my gradual genocide of the Lionels will happen, believe me. And I will get 120 arrows every time it happens. I really like how common arrows are in this game after them being like fucking
Yeah.
like unicorn
Oh, yeah,
shit in
it's-
Breath of the
it's
Wild.
The
very
thing is,
nice.
you need so many of them because so many of the bosses and mini bosses require
Yeah.
you to hit them with arrows. So the game just lavishes you with them.
But that was a problem in Breath of the Wild as well, and they didn't fix it there. So
It's
like,
dumb though. In Breath of the Wild, I remember going to like the Little Foss camp in Lanayru specifically to get arrows.
yeah,
And in this game, there's NPCs that will sell you arrows. You can have like 5 arrows for 20 rupees,
it's great.
or you can break a single box and get that same number of arrows.
Boxes and barrels all have arrows in them, and I think it's the best fucking thing.
I remember in Breath of the Wild, anytime I was near a town, I would just be like, where are the arrows? I'm buying all of them.
Yeah.
Yep.
Whereas in this, it's fine. I've never needed to like go hunting for arrows.
There you go. That's one thing they fixed.
One of the reasons that the economy is so much better in this game is that you're not spending fucking 60 to 80 rupees on fucking arrows every time you get to a merchant. It's much, much more convenient.
I was surprised that there was no. I haven't. Maybe there are, but there's no Guardian tech or Guardian corpses. Apart from, I guess, at Lookout Landing, there are the Guardian hands that grab Link.
There's like the arrow. There's like those little arrow tips as well, but that's about it.
All the Sheikah tech is gone.
It's like the game wants you to forget that it existed. It's weird how thoroughly they've erased all. There's still a couple bits. There's a couple bits of the ancient tech labs and stuff. But like it would have been really fun if they just had like a couple of guardians in obscure places that like no one had found just roaming around just to give you that familiar oh shit with the piano cue. Would have been great.
I would love that.
I want to stumble into a Guardian and some Gloom hands fucking going at each other.
Yeah.
Like, I want to see that fight
That would have
happen.
been funny.
It would have been easy enough as well just to be like, I don't know, you could say one of the Zonai had found a blueprint for a Guardian and had like transformed itself into a Guardian. Like if you found one of the flux cores and it's just Guardian shaped potentially and it just starts
Yeah.
shooting lasers at you.
Just one cave that had like a Guardian that had no legs or had broken legs. I think that would have been really neat just to see. I like the Talos. When you kill them, they have a little rock that is shaped like a heart because that is their heart.
Yes.
That's good.
It's one of those things where it's like, no. You're not putting this in your inventory and forgetting about it. You're fusing this shit now.
Yeah, there's a
Yeah.
couple of those, aren't there?
It makes
So-
you do it. It's good design, although I didn't realize what I was looking at the first few times I saw one, so I just left it on the ground. I'm stupid.
They're pretty good fusion items as well.
I like the glowing one because you can get a glowing one if it's like a
Yeah,
glowing
the
Talos.
luminous
It's
Talos,
very cool.
yeah.
I like also that quest markers are where the quest giver is, and the information of where you're supposed to go and what you're supposed to be looking for is in the quest description or the dialogue that the NPC gives you.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, it makes it feel less like I'm just, oh, I need to go here.
Yeah, you're very rarely following quest markers in this game. And again, we talked about the visual signposting, but it's like, it's not, you're just told to do something and you just close the map and just look and be like, what's interesting around here?
The game makes logical sense enough to where that works.
Yeah.
Which is not what you'd get in most like open world games of that nature. It wouldn't make sense because like they just haven't built it that way.
One problem with the enemies coming back and that they're leveled to you Oblivion style is that there are these weird blockades on main routes to get to specific areas. Specifically, Hillier Bridge, which you saw in my replay of there being a Gleeok, which is a great moment, but it's a place I need to travel constantly to get to areas. Especially if I don't fast travel, I try not to. And also the Fort Hatino. If you want to get to Hatino Village, that place is swarming with so many enemies, high-level enemies, and I have to go back and forth between there. So fuck them. If I clear them out once,
I think this is another thing of like making the world more difficult to traverse, so you'll use vehicles.
I also think that they should probably make the enemy leveling system a bit more transparent to the player.
Yeah.
Because the fact that you don't realize that you're making the problem worse by engaging with the enemies that you then come across.
But I need stronger weapons to engage with them.
You need stronger weapons to upgrade your armor and weapons.
And you need everything, but like it happens at such an accelerated pace.
Yeah.
That the first, like, you should not be killing any enemies when you first get to the ground. You should kill nothing.
Genuinely, I killed like 15 red bokoblins and then they were gone.
Yep.
They didn't exist anymore.
Do they get stronger based on how many you kill?
Yes.
There's an EXP leveling system in the game that the game does not tell you about.
Oh, I always figured it was based off of like doing shrines and shit.
No, it's based off how many enemies you kill and bosses are
Yeah, the
worth
game
more
should
points.
sign. It'd be nice if the game just like you feel the enemies around you get stronger.
I feel stronger now.
It would be nice to have something that indicates what the world state is at, and maybe possibly like a mechanic in the game where you can decrease it,
reduce
perhaps?
it. Yeah.
Like that would make sense to me. Like you can go down a quest line.
It feels like if you die more, then it should decrease the enemy levels, potentially.
Saving and loading, or entering a shrine that deletes anything you've built.
Yes.
So if you like
That's
to
annoying,
ride
yep.
around on a motorcycle from place to place and you come across a shrine, you're like, oh fuck, if I do that, my thing is gonna be deleted.
They also despawn pretty quickly if you go a little too far away.
This ticked me off. And yeah, the same thing with them despawning. I understand that there's a very tight memory budget, but they really should have fucking kept those.
It's really annoying when you've got a save file and you can see a picture of your thing next to you in your save file, and then you load and it's like,
Yeah,
oh.
then
that
it's
is a
gone
little
when
bit
you
distressing,
reload
isn't
it.
You'll come across a gap you're trying to clear or something that you're trying to do, and you build this construct and you're like, I only have one fucking shot at this, I better save. You built this really complex thing. It's like you save so that if something goes wrong you can load that save, but what you have to do instead is you construct the thing, then you shake it to pieces, and then you save a blueprint of it and favorite it, and then you make an actual save, and then you rebuild it again. Something goes wrong, then you can load it, and then you can rebuild it again from your memory save. I like that Stark fragments, if you put them on a magic rod, they can light up the depths really well.
Rods are a cool idea in this game, because you can like stick a sapphire on a rod and it'll make it into an ice rod, so you can shoot ice balls, or you can stick an opal on and that'll let you shoot water balls. They fucking suck ass though. They do no damage.
Lots of things don't do damage.
The lightning one's obviously fucking broken.
I was carrying around like 3 of these in my inventory for ages and never used them, and I was like, why do I even have these? Like, I'm not gonna do anything with them.
You make a sapphire one so that you can be in the Gerudo area with whatever armor you want, and you just have it on your back while you're running around.
Yeah, I guess.
And the same thing with the ruby one for the ice areas.
I also really like the what I call the Luddites battle cry from the Lionels. Like, I really like that. Like, the way it just fucking deletes your technology as soon as it spawns in.
I don't like that. Game, you've let me build contraptions to kill every enemy in the game, and yet when the Lionels come out, they instantly evaporate them.
Even Ganondorf can't fucking kill your robot, but the Lionel and its Luddite battle cry, it will have none of your bullshit.
They built that whole fucking system. Game, let me play it the way that I want to play it, like I've been playing the entire rest of the game.
Slap that Lionel ass.
Did you just drop like 5 Roombas in a pit with Ganondorf and then run away?
No, but I did drop 5 Roombas in a pit with a Lionel and watched as it deleted all of them instantly. And I was like, oh, I'm sorry. I thought I was playing a game in which building contraptions is one of the main mechanics. Clearly, I am wrong.
This is why Lionels are the best.
I wish there were more combat encounters in the game like Lionel's.
Yeah.
Gleeoks are... We sort of skirted around them. Gleeoks are kind of interesting, but I think they're not that fun to fight.
I love it when there's an enemy that I have to shoot it in its weak spot with an arrow and then wail on it. There certainly weren't any other enemies like that in the game previously that serve the exact same function.
It's the Zelda problem. Like, hit the eyeball, hit the glowing eyeball. Like, that's the fucking Zelda problem.
Lionels aren't like that. Why is it? I was really disappointed by the Gleeoks. They're like the one new enemy that I just don't like.
The first one I fought properly was an ice one, and that was the perfect one because, like, the end of that, like,
Yeah, the end of that
encounter,
fight is cool.
like, where you recall on the ice block and it goes up into the sky and, like,
Yeah,
it's good
recalling
shit.
at the end is
It's funny shit, but then you realize that you don't have to do that because the Keysai ball exists as an item in the game.
Yeah.
So you just fucking arrow it to death and, like, you just wail on it until it dies. Other than that, great fucking encounter. Like, really threatening to look at. Fucking excellent.
You know what I like is when you get the boss moblins and they're just like wandering around with their little dudes.
It's just
Like a
having the
duck
time
and
of
its
their life. Just having
ducklings.
a good time.
Boss moblins are one of the ways that the game makes the moblin encounters much more interesting because the boss moblin like gives them orders and they like make formations and they attack you like simultaneously instead of taking their turns.
Yes.
Again, it's like why can't all of the bokoblin encounters in this game be this interesting?
As someone who deeply enjoys like bolting together 5 explosive barrels and dropping them on things, when they all stack up in the same place on each other, gives me real good feelings inside.
I really like just shooting the boss one with a muddle bud and then watching it kill its little minions.
Yeah, Muddle Buds, I ran out of them quickly when I realized how useful they were.
Muddlebud's fucking broken ass bullshit.
Walking along like little ducks right next to that river. Yeah, so
It's
good.
funny.
Wonder what's going to happen to them all.
Mitch's fond memories of drowning bokoblins.
It's so easy. They drown so good.
I really like elemental enemies because I can be like,
Yeah.
I will pay you 1 piece of ice to fuck off 5 outposts.
Like, yes, a Wizrobe. Hello again. There's a lot of customization. Customization good. Like, let's say that. Custom good.
Yeah, the pose voices in the quest to get the eyes back to that one guy, and you get all the cool, some cool stuff from that vendor. Yeah.
Yeah, I like those. I like that there's a replenishable source of things like bomb arrows, or not bomb arrows, like bombs and certain weapons and armor.
The gloom clumps as well, because you only get those otherwise from killing gloomhounds.
Yeah, my closing thoughts are I really like this game and I like nature. That's it.
Likes nature.
And I like exploring. And I like I think people who have just like seen and heard about this game just don't get why it's so much more fun than other open world games, why it's so much more meaningful.
It's hard to
It's so much
convey,
more
I feel
evocative,
like.
and I think it does convey the ideas behind it without words. And yeah, like we've said, the individual bits of it can be very shallow and they can be like frustrating and very flawed, but it is to do the old cliche is definitely more than the sum of its parts.
Yeah, every other open world game is effectively pointless, with maybe the exception of Elden Ring or something like that. Like, Breath of the Wild just does everything that they do, and so does this better. Like, why bother?
As a person who doesn't generally like open world games, like I've never finished another open world game, I don't think. I think it's just that exploring feels fun in this, whereas it doesn't in other games. And I think that's because the map is so well made so that you can look in any direction in an area you've not been in before and be like, what is that over there? I will go find out.
And it's always something. It might not be the greatest reward, but there's always something.
Yeah.
And you're not just climbing a tower to fill out a list of icons on your mini-map to, like, go and do.
You're climbing the tower because you want to see what landmarks you can see from the top of it.
Like, and if there's a mountain on the map, like, you can almost guarantee that there'll be something on top of it. Like, there's a reward for climbing it in some way, shape, or form. Like, whether it's a Korok or whether it's just, like, a treasure chest that's embedded in the ground, whatever it is, like, there's always, like, little, like, trails of reward, like tiny little gingerbread crumbs like to just tempt you to go just a little bit further. It's cute.
Love you, Nintendo. Now fire your whole legal department, and with the money you saved, hire someone to write your games better.
Should this game have taken 6 years to make?
I think it took 6 years to make because they had to integrate the fusion mechanics and make sure that they didn't break. Like that's going to be the bulk of the work on this game. I think is going to be like what they call the
physics were a lot.
What is it they call it? The environment system or the element system?
Yeah.
And getting all that to
The
work
chemistry
correctly.
system, I think it is, isn't it?
Yeah, that's it.
Also, I suspect that this is one of those things where they had a very small team working on it as a DLC for Breath of the Wild, and the scope of the game grew, and it took a long time for them to like keep up with it or catch up with it.
Yeah, I'm curious at what point did they decide to make the call to upgrade it to a full game?
I bet that created a lot of problems with a lot of work that then had to be done on the Breath of the Wild engine that it wasn't designed for. Like, I don't think they made it in an economical way.
I'd heard that they finished the game like 2 years ago, but they basically they kept doing like optimization passes, and COVID was happening, so they were like, you know what, maybe we won't release this just yet, because like they were having trouble like finishing the optimization. I could absolutely believe that there was a point in this development like 2 or 3 years ago when it ran at like 20 frames a second constantly.
Yeah, I agree. I bet they had an almost final build of the game that ran at 15 frames a second all the time and froze when you did anything, and all the physics objects glitched through one another. As a former and probably still current professional physics programmer, I'm amazed at the lack of physics glitches.
Yeah, it doesn't happen often. Like the only real one, and it's not really so much as a glitch as it is unintended, like you can fling yourself like vast distances because there's no speed cap.
It's sick. I'm glad there's no speed cap.
Yeah, it's funny. The game does chug. Like it goes to like 5 frames a second. Like sometimes
It chugs a lot, yeah, especially when you have 5 guys out with you.
there is a height cap in the game. Apparently, I can't remember what the exact number is, but it's so high you should never reasonably get to it. But the game will just say you can't go any further.
I've got one final thought
Go on.
to close us out.
Yeah.
In conclusion, Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom is a magnificent, wonderful game, but not as good as Pikmin 4, baby. Play Pikmin 4, available now on Nintendo Switch. Please buy it. Please.